So we're sitting there, and 250 comes in for sale, and all of a sudden there's one guy in the crowd. I'll even say his name. His name was Danny Donner, and I see him open up his pants, take down his underwear to the point where I saw part of his stem, reach in, grab a tux, boom, leaves it right on the garbage pail.
Welcome back to another episode of Drop a Pen. Now, this is a big episode, huge episode, I would say. And it's not because our good friend Large is going to join us in a little bit. This is your first ever podcast recording as a father.
Sure is. I was fatherless during the Large interview, which I'm sure you'll be able to tell. But now...
You weren't fatherless. You weren't a father. You had a dad still.
Oh, yes. Yes, I still
Yeah, we
had
talked
that.
to him.
I was childless during the Large interview.
There you go.
But during this little intro segment, yes, I've already had my baby. He's about a week old.
Yeah. So what's your big takeaways? You thinking about taking him on a flight?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he's going to be flying. We're already talking about maybe bringing him to Thailand like next winter.
Really?
Yeah. I think we can do it. I think we can do it.
Yeah, I mean, whenever my first kid was born 8 weeks, I took her from Japan to Michigan. We did a flight there. And I got to say, one of the worst experiences of my life. It was, your baby will be a little bit older.
Yeah, we're going to test it out with a flight to Boston in June.
Okay.
And so we'll see how that goes. If he passes that test, maybe we'll think about taking him abroad.
Yeah, 4 months, you're still like in a spot where not crawling around, not moving that much, sitting in your lap. So you can get that one. I mean, the 8 weeks old, 12 weeks old, whatever Kelsey was at the time, and I flew by myself. Mm-hmm. It was just me and Kelsey. Dude. But I will say people did act like I was the greatest dad of all time. Like, because people don't typically expect dads to do that.
Single dads, I mean, that's they get a lot of love, rightfully so. Yeah. And it's also, I mean, if you think it's easy to pick up a chick walking a dog, if you're like a dad out there walking his kid,
in my experience, that is not true. Oh, no. In my experience, that is not true. I mean, because you can't really go out and do anything. Like, you do meet people, and I do think that there's a lot of folks out there that want to be with a partner who cares about their kids. So there's definitely that aspect. I mean, shit, that was a big part of me and my wife getting together. I think she saw like how devoted of a dad I was. Mm-hmm. But what is some of the big experiences, like the highlights of week one?
Well, let's take it back to the birth.
Okay.
This was something that my brother warned me about, and I'm glad he did. So I'd like to warn all of you about it. When they come out, they're going to have a bit of a cone head, sort of like an alien-shaped head. Now, I love the Alien movies. I've seen all of them, but it was still a little jarring.
Oh, yeah.
Like right when they take him out, hand him to you, you're like, is this thing even human? It looks like a xenomorph.
When people say it's love at first sight, is it?
Yeah.
Because they come out like covered in purple goo.
Yeah.
Cone heads.
He was not covered in too much goo, but he had like a xenomorph shaped head. And don't worry, the head will eventually go back to normal within the first few days. But yeah, at first it's like, oh my God. And then I assisted with the birth. I was holding up one of the legs. I did not, have the cojones to actually look at what was happening.
Oh, you didn't? You didn't go beyond the wall?
I just held up the leg and kind of just like looked at my wife, looked at the wall. I didn't
stood behind Wall Street.
Yeah, I didn't have to like stare at exactly what was happening.
Oh, I saw it. First baby, I definitely saw it. Saw a little poop action too, because you're squeezing out. Can happen.
Yeah, no, and I think actually the baby sometimes like poops immediately after it's born.
Yeah, a little bit of coffee in there probably. Mm-hmm. Get the tracks all loose.
Yeah, but the birth itself went pretty smooth. Other things to look out for is, I think night 2 is when the baby starts cluster feeding. If you don't know what that means, it's just when they have to breastfeed like all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's perfectly normal. It means the baby is going through a growth spurt, but it can be hard on the mom because like when is the mom supposed to sleep if the baby's just constantly feeding? And you're not supposed to fall asleep.
And that's got to hurt. When you're first getting used to it, it's got to be so painful.
Yes. But don't worry, moms. I think after a while, your nipples just kind of go numb.
Yeah. You would hope so.
Yeah, hopefully. But they make all sorts of products you can rub on them and stuff.
And it works if you're doing a long bike ride. I actually use some of that nipple cream on myself when I was going to do a bike ride because it's so much moving back and forth. And one of my buddies was like, nipple chafing is a big thing.
Yeah, I think most marathon runners probably have to put like Band-Aids over their nips.
And in their, like, right around their balls.
Yeah, that's the worst feeling. But no, my wife's been doing a great job. She has insisted on changing the majority of his diapers so far.
Yeah.
Which has made it pretty easy on me.
Yeah, because your nipples are good. You're not.
My nipples are good. Yeah. I mean, I'll like wake up with her in the middle of the night, but then she's doing all the hard work. She wants to develop like a bond and trust with the kid before I start changing all the diapers.
Like, who the fuck is this guy in a Scully cap?
Yeah. But so, and I think at like the first few weeks, the baby needs to feed every 3 hours on the dot. But we've been able to sleep in 3-hour shifts, sort of like Frank the Tank.
Yeah, you look pretty fresh for having a baby. You don't look like The Walking Dead.
Yeah. But I have heard with being a dad is that like once you feel like you've got it all figured out, then they enter a new phase. And then there's a whole new set of challenges.
I feel like the infant phase is underrated. I don't want to say easier, but it almost because the process of coming up to a baby is so unbelievably stressful, especially your first one when you don't have any idea really what you're doing. And no one does. Mm-hmm. Like you have no idea. And you, like I told you, my wife and I watched all of The Walking Dead whenever it was out because it's kind of how we felt.
Yeah.
But then in like 7-8 weeks is when things really start to pick up. Like because at first the baby just lays and eats. Like doesn't do anything else.
So if you guys just want to post them on the couch and binge a show, you can do that.
Throw the baby in like one of those little pillow things on the bed or whatever and you're hanging out together.
Yeah, I guess, did you swaddle your baby at first?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
swaddling.
You got to learn how to wrap a swaddle.
Yep, skin to skin.
That's a lot of fun.
I saw you doing
skin to skin. I've been doing skin to skin, but then it gets sad when the baby's like, hold up, I need some milk. And then he starts going after my tits. And then he's like, oh, no, these are not milky tits.
I think if you let it after a while, I think there is an evolutionary trait where you can have a little milk.
I have heard of some males being able to produce milk, which is insane.
You should do some research on that. See if you can hook up a pump, see if you can get it going.
My wife would not be happy about that. She already thought it was weird when I was like, oh, should we get they sell something called Mr. Milker or something, which I thought it was real. It's like these like tits that a guy can wear is filled with milk.
Yeah.
Apparently it's just a gag gift for like us. It's like, you're not like, no one actually uses those.
Imagine pulling that bad boy out at the airport.
But it makes sense if you could just have those tits filled with formula and then like the dad could do some breastfeeding. But
and it wouldn't hurt your nipples.
No, it wouldn't. Now, I don't know how it works with formula. Like if you decide to just raise your kid on formula, are you still walking around with tits that are like leaking milk?
No, like it stops after a while. Like if you don't use it,
if you're not,
one of the ways to stop it, putting cabbage leaves over your tits.
Okay. Is that something you can do to soothe your tits too, you think?
I'm not sure. I'll give it a try.
Okay.
I'll do the research.
I feel like that could help with chafing.
Yeah, I mean, cabbage might have a shit ton of properties that we're not even aware of.
Yeah. Cabbage over the tit.
I mean,
so it's
kimchi is good for you.
Yeah. I mean, because that's always the fear boys have about their penises. They're like, if I don't use it, am I going to lose it?
True.
Like if you're not banging, is the dick like, well, I'm going to stop producing semen?
Yeah, I thought my dick was fucked when I went to seminary.
Yeah. But no, that's not the case. But it is the case with breastfeeding. If you just stop breastfeeding the baby, the boobs will eventually get the message that they don't have to keep making milk.
Yeah. The message. They get the text.
Yeah. Now, did you ever sample breast milk when your wife had just given birth?
Yeah, I had a sore throat one time, and I heard that there's a lot of healing properties.
There are.
So I gave it a little swashbuckling in my mouth.
Okay.
Didn't help.
I have not tried any of the breast milk yet, but I have heard about those healing properties. Like even if the baby has like a cut or a bruise, you can kind of like rub some on. And
like some eczema, whatever.
Yeah, it's good for the baby.
Especially at the beginning, the colostrum.
Yeah, no, that stuff's supposed to be liquid gold.
Oh,
I was thinking that if I collected my wife's colostrum, I could probably sell that to Billy Football for like thousands of dollars.
I remember when that was a thing. There was a bunch of bodybuilders that were they would go to like a wet nurse, that they would pay a wet nurse to give them like however much, 16 ounces of breast milk a day.
Yeah.
And some of those wet nurses make good ass money. See, if you got strapped up one of those things, nurse Donnie would be.
Now, I'm sure people listening might not even know what colostrum is, but that's the substance that comes out before the milk starts to come out. It still looks kind of milky, but
thicker.
A thicker consistency, and it's a miracle drug.
It's one of those gel packets that you take on a marathon.
Yep, exactly. I do think eventually we should have like a segment called Baby on Board or something where we just give people tips for traveling with kids.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I'm definitely open to traveling with a 1-year-old is my friend says it was a lot easier to travel with his kid before they could walk on their own or
throw them in a stroller or whatever.
Yeah, back when like wherever you put them, they're going to stay. It was easier for them to go all over the world.
Yeah, and some of those I went skiing for the first time or second time in my life this like 2 weeks ago, and it seems like the worst place in the world to take children is the Bunny Hills. Like the meltdowns that we were seeing were just ungodly.
Yeah.
Like the kids are hot, they're tired. These kids were throwing the ski poles, throwing their skis, throwing themselves down, having just flat out tantrums.
Yeah, dude, skiing, I mean, I love it now, but I remember as a kid having some traumatizing times. Like sometimes my parents would drop me off at ski school for the day and I would just be furious because it's the last thing I wanted to do. Just be out there falling constantly.
Hot.
Yeah, you're either way too cold or way too hot.
You're never comfortable when you're doing outdoor stuff in the snow.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, I've had times where my like body's overheating, but my toes and fingers feel like they're going to fall off because it's so cold.
Like shoveling snow, you're out there. It's absolutely miserable.
But you went skiing in Michigan.
Yeah. Which, I mean,
I didn't even know they had resorts really.
Well, it's Boyne, Michigan is where I went, which they call the Aspen of Northern Michigan. Which is, but it snowed a shit ton. We got like 30 inches in the 4 days that I was up there.
Fresh pow pow, let's go.
Yeah, it was perfect it was my kid's first time going, wifey's first time going. Had a great time. Nice. We had like a ski in, ski out cabin.
Oh, sick.
Which was sick. And for a first time for a kid, I thought that little mountain was perfect.
Yeah, you don't like some of the mountains out west and stuff are like would be even too tough for my parents at this point.
Yeah, they seem tough.
Yeah. Nice.
But they had a drink, maybe the best like cold weather drink because I'm not a hot coffee guy really. They did 3/4 coffee and 1/4 of Mexican hot chocolate mixed together.
Okay, I thought you were going to be talking about an alcoholic drink, and I thought you were going to be like in 1/4 whiskey, and I was going to be like, that's just an Irish coffee.
Oh, no. I mean, I had a couple of those, too.
Okay,
it was delicious, but just like a straight-up kids drink, and they had these amazing Belgian waffles as well. But I think we're a ski family now. I think we already planned a trip with our friends for next year to go to Colorado this time, though.
Yeah.
Do a little better.
You should do it. I mean, and eventually you should go to the Dolomites in Italy. Those are the best mountains I've ever snowboarded.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're a snowboarder?
I am a snowboarder now.
Yeah.
Yep. I made the transition when I was maybe 12 or I don't know. And that sucked making the transition, but now I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Dolomites, we'll do a Drop a Pin episode on it because I think that's where the next winter Olympics are.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're going to be up there. And like those were... That was like the most fun I've ever had. And I've got some crazy stories from that trip, but we'll save them for that episode.
I'm excited about another future episode that we're going to have. I'm just waiting for the Pope to die.
Yes.
Once that happens, we're going to drop a pin in the Vatican.
Yeah. So if any of you guys know a priest in the Chicago area who would come on, that would be fascinating.
Yeah. I want to talk about the history of the gray smoke versus white smoke. Some of the rumors about the cash and gold that are inside the Vatican. Basically, I want to talk about the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I mean, the Pope pretty much ran most of Italy for a while. Or there was now it's just the Vatican, but there used to be a whole area called the Papal States, and that was all run by the Pope. So we'll We'll do a deep dive on that.
And you could argue for a long time. I bet one of the longest periods that whoever was Pope was one of the most powerful people on earth.
Definitely the most powerful person in Europe.
Yeah.
Christendom.
Right.
Is what they called it. And you were the king of it if you were the Pope.
Yeah.
And there were some bad popes out there.
Oh, yeah.
There were also some good ones, but yeah.
John Paul II was pretty liked.
Was he a recent Pope?
Yeah. I think he was the Pope in like the 80s, early 90s.
Oh, I remember him, yeah.
He was the one before the Pope that stepped down. That's now the Pope Emeritus.
Yeah, and the Pope who stepped down, didn't it also come out
Benedict?
that he may have been like in a Nazi youth
Could have been in
camp.
Nazi youth. Also,
I think that was
very aware of the pedophilia that was going on.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he was the first one to step down.
I think it was because of that. They they had the evidence and they were like, you got to step down.
Yeah.
Which you would think the vetting process for that would be a little better.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I just feel like it was kind of just the worst kept secret.
Yeah.
But this Pope is going to do it right. He's going to die in office.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got to do it right.
That's how you got to do it if you're Pope.
Yeah, no doubt.
Should we get into the interview with Large?
Yeah, let's go from the wall streets of the Vatican around the wall to Wall Street, New York. Here we go. All right, welcome back to Drop a Pin. Today we have one of my favorite people at the company. We've done a bunch of episodes together, so we have a lot of mic time, probably 200 hours of talking to each other, maybe even more than that. It's one of my favorite podfathers, the former Wall Street guy. It's Large. Large, welcome to Drop a Pin.
Hey, guys, how are you? It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I did.
I think you mean that.
I did have to explain to him the concept of the show.
Yeah.
I was like, would you mind dropping a pin on Tuesday? And he was like, I don't really know what that means.
But he was in, I bet.
Oh, yeah. He was
Don't
he was
you
on
see
board.
that there's a universe where that could have meant, you can't take a lot of fentanyl, so just a pinhead of fentanyl.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah.
I didn't know what the hell he was talking about because it's this guy.
A weed pin, all kinds of stuff.
So he was like, where do you want to talk about? You want to talk about Brooklyn? And I said, sure, I'll do whatever you want, especially since we did the Brooklyn food tour at one time when it first started.
Yeah.
I think I was only with the firm a couple of months where me and Kate did around, and then we were talking about some other stuff.
I actually shot down one of your ideas. I feel bad about it, but you were like, oh, what if we dropped a pin in Indiana? It's where I went to college. And I was like, I'm on record saying like Indiana's got to be the most boring state in the country.
Yeah, exactly. But I still do Twisted History. We do it once a month. Yeah. And Vibs is co-host on that. And Vibs is a huge Indiana guy. And so I find whenever we're doing topics, I always try to find something for Indiana just so de facto, I know a little bit about Indiana.
There you go.
Because of Vibs and, whatever, the 4 years I spent drunk there. Yeah.
And you also know a little bit about Wall Street, right?
Yes, a little bit.
How many years did you work there?
I graduated in college in 1993 and went right down to the floor. I was scheduled. When I graduated, I was going to law school. I deferred admission to law school for one semester, which law schools are cool with, you know what I mean, to get some work experience on the floor of the American Stock Exchange. Because a guy down there, my dad is a structural steel worker, an iron worker. Man's man, like the macho man of the exact opposite of me, as you know. These are the softest hands in Barstool. Yeah. They're wonderful.
But your son's a plumber.
Yes, my son's a plumber and electrician. So even though my dad never went to school past the 5th grade, doesn't know how to write script, he had bumped into somebody who worked on Wall Street and said, oh, my son is graduating from Notre Dame. I dropped it. And the guy's like, oh, my buddy is a huge Notre Dame guy and works on the floor of the American Stock Exchange. Want me to see if you can get your kid like an internship or something? That internship turned into a job. And then after my first, I had an incident my first week there where I called my parents. I was like, I'm not going to law school. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I'm going to be a specialist on the floor of the American Stock Exchange for the rest of my life. American Stock Exchange no longer exists.
Now, what was their reaction from being like a steel worker, iron worker, you coming out? I'm sure that was a little bit American dreamy for your dad, not finishing 6th grade and then his son doing really well at Notre Dame, getting into law school. Do you think there was elements of like, what are we doing?
I think for them, I was less. So I'm the second of 3 boys. My older brother is a local 3 electrician. My younger brother's a local 3 electrician. And my dad was intimate in kind of getting them set up. like knowing which one to do. Like when my kid was thinking about joining the Coast Guard, I'd spoke to you about it. Mm-hmm. I'd spoke to Cons about it. I'd spoke to Kate about it. I'd spoke to people that I trust about it. But I didn't have a horse in that race. I didn't know what to say. So I find that my whole career, I was the first person in my family, either side, the Rileys or the McCarthys, to ever graduate from college. So even that was something that they couldn't help me with, the application processes and stuff like that. So then when it came to my career not being something that was blue collar, they sort of just do what you think is right, like, and wash your hands and don't do drugs, like that type of thing. So doing this, it wasn't like I was deferring admission to law school because I was having a very good time, working at, Portillo's, which I probably would love.
Right.
They were like, oh, he's going down to Wall Street. So then I was there for 25 years. So, which is it's a full career in and of itself. I met my wife down there, as you guys know, fell in love with 3 kids and some of my closest friends. I don't speak to a lot of people from nobody from grammar school, nobody from high school, couple from college, but most of my friend group is my old Wall Street asshole buddies, you know.
Would you say
it's a chunk of time? 25 years is big for anything.
Big, yeah.
Yeah.
And would you say that's because it's such a high stress, intense job that there's a lot of bonding that goes on? I mean, I don't want to compare it to warfare, but you bond quickly in combat.
I think it's a fair.
And you might bond quickly on the stock trading floor.
Yeah, I think, and again, I have that sensitivity too. I went to war today in the pits.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I was in the trenches.
So by, and it's just very, insulting to people who actually went to war.
Disagree.
But you're right. It's fucking. So I had a full head of hair. My hair was majestic, the type you used to shake out when I got out of the shower. I had a mane.
Yeah, when I saw those pictures for the first time, I was like, damn, I would fuck that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Not anymore.
Yeah.
And so it was, and I was a trader. So I was a position trader at which was moving around positions all day. So it was like blood in my stool and hair loss and all that kind of stuff. It was, and I've never took a lunch break in the 25 years that I was there because I traded equities. So from 9:30 to 4, and obviously pre and post market, we did some stuff, not as much as they do now. So I traded from 9:30 to 4. We were glued to the specialist post, to the $2 broker, to the trading desk that I was upstairs because there was levels, right? I started as specialist clerk, specialist, $2 broker, went over to the big board, the New York Stock Exchange, got a chance to be an upstairs trader. So I went down to Atlanta for a year with SunTrust, came back up to Citigroup, got fired for Take a Report, which was a huge fucking thing.
Yeah.
Got rehired for the most money I ever made in a calendar year because of Take a Report, did a couple of other things. Then I had like a random layoff, was no animosity towards Canaccord, was the company I was working for at the time, a Canadian company. And on that layoff, I had the opportunity to go to 2 places that were similar to what I was doing. I was managing director, so I had I had a little bit of a reputation as being a pretty good trader, at least a ham and egg guy. And then I also got this opportunity from Kevin Clancy, who said, hey, listen, a buddy of mine in common with you, because Kevin was always a fan when I was typing Take a Report. He said, if you want to come in and do like a podcast just to see if you'd like to do this, a podcast episode, or I said, I'd love to do that. So he came in, I sat in for a KFC episode with him and Fights. And then I did 1 episode of Barstool Radio, which was KFC, Riggs, Trent, and me that day. Remember the old HQ?
Yeah, yeah.
And I loved it. So I went into the office and I said to Dave, I was like, yeah, I think I'd be interested in this. And he offered me a job on the spot, just to write.
Yeah.
And then the serious thing came along just by luck, where I got the morning show with Willie and Francis and stuff. And then it kind of built from there.
Did you have to take a big pay cut to work here at first?
Yeah. I'm not at where I was when I left Wall Street. I've been here for 6 years.
Yeah.
So it was, it's so, I don't know, cliche to say quality of life, but we've spoke about this endless times on Podfathers, particularly with you. Like when you had moved from one place to another, you told me about the quality of life when you moved to Chicago, right? It all changes when you have the kids and shit. So going out 3 or 4 nights a week, entertaining customers, trading from 9:30 to 4 every day like your fucking hair was on fire, that worked out very well for me as a young man. It did. It worked out well for me as a young man. But as I got older, kids and all that kind of stuff, like my position would have shifted in Wall Street anyway. So I decided to take a flyer on this. And it wasn't even me. I had asked Annie. And she was like, if we won the lottery, would you go to this place and this place? I said, no. She's like, would you try Barstool? I said, yeah, I think I'd give it a whirl for a year. She's like, so fucking do it. We're okay. You know, for a year. Right. We kind of always go back. Mm-hmm. And then when it came time to renegotiate my contract after a year, because to your point, I had kids, right? I mean, it wasn't like you were hiring, Nicky Smokes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wonderful guy, doesn't have a wife and kids, right? So you can pay him pennies. Or maybe they don't. No, not pennies, but you know what I'm saying? Like that type thing.
Yeah.
But I went to, I'm sure he does fantastic. But like, so I went to Erica, our former CEO, whose husband I used to do a lot of business with. Her husband was in my thing. And I was like, Erica, we're renegotiating contract. Just so you know, I'm going to have to give up my trading licenses. And she knows about Series 7s and 63s and all that stuff just from when her ex-husband was doing it. So I think that might have fast-tracked me to kind of get a little bit better in pay.
Because they knew what you were giving up.
I think so.
Yeah.
And so so that helped. And then, my contract's up in June of this year. But I spoke to Dave, and I think he was like, just bring it up again in January, and we'll work something out longer term. So I feel pretty good about it, and I'd like to stay here forever. I don't want to go back to Wall Street at all.
No. I mean, at your age, would you even be able to go back?
That's insulting. Did you get that? How insulting
it was very insulting.
It's a fair question.
Especially like all the people I know who did like investment banking and stuff, they said like that's a young man's game. Like everybody goes in, they put in like 5 years tops, they make all that money, but the lifestyle is just wears you down, and then they change jobs.
So for you, was it just the money
porn.
that was was the super big appeal? Was it the money? Like the lifestyle, obviously, like Donnie was saying, like that's something that's exciting. But was that level of work, was it money was the main motivator?
So I, looking back on it now, right, it would certainly seem that way. But I didn't grow up in the middle of a farm. I didn't come to the big city for the first time. I didn't go to like a little college. Like I did have some life experiences. But I will tell you, the first day when I went down to the American Stock Exchange, the smaller of the two stock exchanges, the shadier of the two stock exchanges too, like I should have wore a mask to work, I was floored. Like you really get enamored with that whole, like the movie Wall Street type thing, like how everyone started to want to, let me get those two-tone shirts and stuff. So part of it was just, when you had the corporate card and, you go to O'Hara's around the corner on the block that was named after my father-in-law now, you do get enamored with going to all the best restaurants, never having to pay for anything. And you feel like you become a captain of industry. So there was a lot more to it than the money, but the money was always good. I missed the big fuck you money. Like I missed that by a couple of years or, by less than a generation. But like I said, I still did pretty well. And I've downsized since then. Like I've sold my house. I used to have the big house with all the urinals and shit.
No more urinals. We live in
a smaller house. We're trying to get it to the point where the kids don't want to come back after college. Yeah. Because they'll be in a twin bed. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As opposed to them having their own little floor. So yeah, money probably was one of the big factors, but there was an overall aura to Wall Street back then that I ate up. And what's the coolest place to be from if in the United States? Like, where were you born? Tucson, Arizona. And that sucks. Like, who gives a fuck about Tucson, Arizona? Where were you born?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Who gives a fuck?
No,
I'm from Brooklyn.
No.
Like, honestly, Brooklyn's a lot fucking cooler. Oh, where do you work? I work on the Florida New York Stock Exchange. That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So all that stuff. Where do you work now? I work at Barstool. That's fucking cool. So there's always been that little, like you feel like you're caught up in something that's just very cool to be a part of.
Yeah.
I don't mean to shit on Tucson. It's probably fucking
And like now the fact that you have a kid
Jacksonville's great.
who is in college, and I think you're the first Barstool employee to have this happen. You have a kid in college. All the kids at college think he's cool because his dad works for Barstool.
Yeah. So Mick is a junior at Alabama right now, and he does pretty well on his own. But I think it does really help out to all of a sudden be the most popular bar on campus, and it's Alabama Texas week, and the cover at some of these bars are $50, $60 with lines around the corner. Jeez. But the dude who owns the bar is a big Barstool fan. And shout out to Tripp at Industry. The guy was awesome. So we got to come around through the kitchen. You know what I mean? And like get in, and all of a sudden, it's just that those little benefits of me sending him away with a couple of T-shirts every time he comes home and stuff come back in spades. And to a lesser degree, the younger kids, even my daughter, like goes with the little Chicks in the Office shirt and our friends, where did I get that? Like that type of stuff. They all kind of know that their dad works. You know, you get the same thing, right? Like they all know that their dad works for Barstool, and it's they all know that the mom was a CEO on Wall Street. Like it's cool. It's very, very cool. And I don't know if I would have been happier doing a job, you know, working for human resources at Brooklyn Union Gas and making even more money. Maybe I'm just making that up because I did an internship there, but like there's nothing to it. Like, you know what I mean? Everything that I've done, there seems to always have been something to it.
Before we go further, I just need to fully understand what a stock exchange is, because nowadays I can go on my computer and I can trade stocks, I can buy and sell stocks. Was the purpose of a stock exchange because back in the day you couldn't do that? Like the only place you could actually buy and sell was at these physical exchanges?
Yeah, so I've always worked with listed stocks, stocks that are listed on some stock exchange. The biggest one and the most recognizable is New York Stock Exchange. And
that's the largest in the world, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's a larger stock because I've never dealt with. It's the largest one in the United States by far. You know, like the SIBO out here is
Tokyo's is pretty big.
I guess, yeah. But I never really did anything. I never laid off anything in Asia. So it was a centralized marketplace. So back in the day, I mean, it started underneath a buttonwood tree where people were just selling shares of local businesses, and it grew into this thing where there'd be these centralized marketplace where every stock was given to a person called a specialist, and some specialists had one stock that they traded because it was fucking Disney. Others had 30 stocks that they traded on their pad because you wouldn't have ever heard of them, right? And if you wanted to buy or sell any share of that stock, you had to go through that specialist through some sort of broker, right? So Donnie says, I want to buy 1,000 shares of Disney. He would call up his financial guy who worked for Fidelity. And that guy from Fidelity would take that order and call whoever covers him on Citigroup's desk. And then the guy in Citigroup's desk would send down to the floor. And I was trading Disney on the floor, so I would go out, and the specialist who would handle it would make me a market, and I would buy it or work it or stuff like that. So that was a centralized marketplace. And when I first started, whenever you were trying to buy a stock, you would be able to buy it, and if you missed it at a price, you'd have to pay up $0.125, 12 cents or so, before you could buy any other shares. Now it's sub-pennies, right? So it's gotten from eighths of a dollar to sixteenths to nickels to pennies to sub-pennies. But back when it was wide open like that, you were going out there in the open outcry market, sending back stuff. So I know hand signals. Like, I don't know if this is the alphabet for traditional sign language, because my alphabet was to be seen up in a balcony. Like, you know what I mean? So there's small bastardization to the people who are sign languaging for
shorthand,
for international deaf people or whatever. But so you kind of go in there and do it. And then all of a sudden, algorithms started to pop up where instead of going through this, you were able to, and algorithms at the beginning were all dark pools, which are essentially glory holes. You didn't know who was on the other side, but you knew it felt good when you got done, right? So you would just put out 10,000 shares to buy, and I'll buy it anywhere in between the bid and the offer. And then somebody else somewhere you didn't know had 20,000 shares for sale, would do the same thing. You'd match up on 10 grand. No fucking questions asked. You didn't have any color about whether or not you just bought 10 grand from somebody who had 50 million for sale. So you essentially just got ran over, and vice versa, but you were able to, you know, find liquidity elsewhere. And then that part grew as the amount of space between, you know, where you were buying started to shrink, and it just became a better option. But there's still stock exchanges. New York Stock Exchange still exists. It just isn't nearly as robust as trading it through all these algorithms or just shooting stuff in through, you know, whatever the hell kind of trading systems you have. The NASDAQ stock exchange, well, it's not a stock exchange, but the NASDAQ exchange always was a computer generated market where anybody could have been a market maker. The centralized marketplace that I was on, there was a specialist who was a centralized market maker. NASDAQ, any stock could have 1,000 different market makers in 1,000 different shops. You know, so I watched the industry change from a centralized marketplace to NASDAQ hybrid thing to whatever it is now. And to your point about me being old, I don't know if I could survive how it is now. Because I was more of a, what do you got for sale, chaps? And don't fucking lie to me. I got 50 for sale, large, but I'm going to reload. All right, so listen, can we do it down a, yeah, we'll do it down a, like that type of
and
stuff.
And really colorful language.
That
like, you fucking cunt, what do you got?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're used to talking people face to face.
Yeah. But I would tell you, colorful language, and I do curse a lot, but there was a couple of things, like my father, I worked for my father-in-law, my future father-in-law. He was the most instrumental person in my career. My dad probably being second, and a gentleman named Mark Costello being third. And so Rick, the guy who died on 9/11, never cursed on the phone. So he would be like, listen, you fucking asshole, don't curse on the phone. Like, because you never know never send booze as a gift because you don't know. Right? Like, so those little things, whenever we would go out with people, and again, I entertained a lot. That's why I'm doing all the food stuff now. Mm-hmm. I just have this giant palate from being able to eat for free for 25 years.
Yeah. That makes sense, actually, yeah.
Donnie's the best cook here, you know what I mean? In Barstool, I have the best fucking palate, hands down. Yeah. You're probably the most adventurous, you know what I mean? I know you're adventurous too.
I eat a lot of gross stuff, but I feel like I also could recognize food that's just legit good.
100%. I think everyone has a great palate. I'm saying mine's better. Can you give me that?
Mincy's got a pretty good palate too.
I would 1,000% agree with that. Like knowing you for as long as I have, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only that, you kind of cut yourself short on how good of a cook you are as well.
Love to cook.
Yeah.
Love to.
Yeah, you have a new show. What's it called?
You got to try this. So I just started there's a young kid in the New York office who used to run the social for Barstool Finance. We brought over that guy, Tyler Morin, who had the Water Coolest, the daily finance newsletter, which is still alive. I read it every morning. And this kid, Ian Becker, was part of the Viceroy program, and he built that Instagram page because like FinTwit is weird. They just want like memes of Elon Musk, saying Doge and shit.
Yeah.
He built that to like 1 million followers, which was awesome. And we just gave it up for some reason. But so then Ian has always, kind of admired my palate and shit like that, even though I had to convince you. So
no, I think you have an incredible palate.
He's like, you want to start doing stuff? And no, you call me old and a suck palate. So we started doing these little bullshit things. And you know me. Like one of the things that I've always admired about you since the first day that we had that General Tso's pig's head. No, we did the goat brain.
Well, I think we did both.
We did the guinea pig.
The goat brain was not good. The guinea pig was not good. The General Tso's pig's head was great.
That's where I took you to the cannibal. Remember?
Yes.
That was fucking. But I remember when we were doing the goat's brain curry, you and I, chaps, he takes me. I barely know anybody, right? Remember when I didn't talk to too many people, and nobody talked to me because they thought I was a cop. And he takes me, we went somewhere in Manhattan. And
Curry Hill.
We didn't have, I don't even know if we had anybody shooting us. So he was putting together the angles. And then as soon as he got back, he edited all his own shit and put it out. I'm the exact opposite. So everything, if you want to see the production value of the sandwich of the month, which people love, and you got to try this, it's because of Ian. And as a result, it got into the algorithm. It gets a lot of hits. So to get something to attach advertisers to, we're going to do a weekly show where I say, hey, chaps, talk to me about something that either you or some of cooks better than anybody else. Like, that type of shit. Is a taco a sandwich? Like, you know what I mean? Like that type of thing. And on top of it, I'll be doing like 2 restaurants a week. So having chefs in and all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we're going to do that end of Feb.
When you do your episode on Galamad, you have to bring me
Galamad. Yeah. But I would. Because you and Kate would come in and talk about Brooklyn food.
Yeah.
But you guys dropped the fucking vowels off of every Italian dish ever since that day.
I have. I will never call it anything except spaghetti and rigatone.
Yeah. Hey, lasagna. Yeah. You got a cannoli? Yeah. It's fucking the best.
Yeah.
So we had a guy on here who also worked on Wall Street. He used all of his money to travel to every country on the planet.
Right.
Now, that's not the route you went.
No.
Would you say when you were making the big bucks before you had a family, was a lot of that money just going to like really nice meals?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like I had so many meals. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was tough. And one of the reasons why I'd go and eat guinea pig with you tomorrow again is because I had so many, this sounds extremely spoiled, but porterhouse for 4, cream spinach, home fries, New York style, rinse, repeat. Another bottle of Jordan, 2 martinis, bellies of the rocks, go home. Like doing that all the time, it does sort of burn you out. But then when all of a sudden I said to a guy, hey, how about we go and get Brazilian food? But before we go, we get Brazilian, we wax our backs. We don't wax our fucking grundles.
Right, why
and
not?
then so then more guys like glammed onto that. So I was able to do more exciting stuff. I don't know. Like I always spent a little bit of money. I don't know where I spent most of my money. Like I didn't have a lot of fun. I always drove nice cars. I lived in nice places, kind of, but I was never good at saving money. My wife had paid off my student loan. We just had a huge session, an act of coitus. Yeah. And as I laid back, a telephone rang and I said, no, I'm sorry, he'd passed away. No, I don't want to talk about it. But thanks so much. And she's like, who's that? I was like, it's Sally Mae. They're coming after me again. And she's like, what the fuck? This is serious. We need to like get some. So she paid off my student loans. So I was never responsible with money. Yeah. My first year on Wall Street, I was there for 6 months. I'd gotten a bonus, and the bonus was, I don't know, $9,000. Nothing. And for that type of shit. But I just got out of college. I went to the check cashing place. I gave up $1,000 of it to cash it. Took $8,000. Walked around with $8,000 in my pocket. Went to DAC. Got fucking bombed out of my mind. Put whipped cream on O.J. Simpson before he cut his wife's head off.
Right.
And then passed out on the train on the way. Woke up. Cut pocket. $8,000 lost. So I was stupid with my fucking money. Yeah. To be quite honest with you, until I became a parent. And even now, I'm still stupid.
But that's how you're supposed to be.
I think so.
Yeah. So if you were sitting down with somebody, they said, "What's a quintessential Wall Street story?" I know you're a guy with $1 million in your brain. What's one that
Second day
out?
of Wall Street, there was a guy. So everyone knows Cramer. You know Jim Cramer, right? Mm-hmm. So Jim Cramer is what he is. He goes in and talks about stocks. But there was a guy before Jim Cramer, and his name was Dan Dorfman. Dan Dorfman walked so Jim Cramer could run. And Dan, instead of being on every show or being on a show once a day, I think it was Tuesdays at 11. Somebody can check me on that. Tuesdays at 11, Dan Dorfman would come on and talk about one stock. It could be anything in the world. I think Dan got into a little bit of trouble because I think he wound up pre-positioning that stock. You know what I mean? So he was moving markets. So at 11 o'clock on every Tuesday on whatever it was, Bloomberg TV or whatever. Hey, it's Dan Dorfman. Today I want to talk to you about Home Shopping Network. Mm-hmm. And then people be like, where the fuck does Home Shopping Network trade? Does it trade on the big board? Does it trade on the NASDAQ? Does it trade And it was my second or third day. And that's exactly what happened. He said, Home Shopping Network. So I was on a specialist post where I'm standing behind it as a clerk. And directly across from me was Home Shopping Network specialist post. 70 other stocks. We had 120 stocks. Our biggest was Viacom and Viacom B. Home Shopping Network wasn't even one of their biggest, but all of a sudden, the whole of the American Stock Exchange, every broker, boom, comes right around this guy. And he starts making markets because everyone starts fucking buying it. Everything that Dan Dorfman touched turned to gold. And so everybody who's watching it is like Donnie is calling his broker, I need to get in on this fucking thing, buy 500. But they're doing it by the millions, right? So all of a sudden, Fidelity, instead of your 1,000 shares to buy, was sending down 500 to buy, 500,000 shares to buy, all this stuff. My point is that Dan created a fucking feeding frenzy at Home Shopping Network. I'm working for a specialist. I see the specialist across from me. I don't remember what the full prices were, but let's say the stock was at $15. The gentleman was like 15 and an eighth a quarter, 100 by 250. Some guy, take him. 250 trades at a quarter. We'll go a quarter, 3/8, 500 by 750, 750,000. And a guy couldn't get it out where they were like, take them. Oh, 750 trades at 3/8. I'm going to spread it out now. We'll go 3/8, 5/8. Nothing offered out of half is 150 offered at 5. Take them. 150 trades at 5/8. We're going to spread it out. So why not the market? It was 16 and 1/8 a quarter. Take them, take. And the guy's like, all right, 250 trades. 250 trades. I'm keeping 100. I got to fucking keep them making market. So we're going crazy with it, this guy. And then he's like, all right, so we're 16 and a half, 5/8 now. And he grabs his fucking arm, the left arm. And I'm watching it. I'm like, oh shit, that's the wrong arm. So as he's doing it, boom, he goes down, has a heart attack. Mm-hmm. And so, turns blue, the whole deal. They bring in the stretchers, they strap him on, right? And as they're wheeling him off the floor, there's guys, brokers there. Because your pad and your stamp was your bond. Like if I had your stationery with your stamp that said, CM, Chaps McNeely or Smith Barney, whatever, 1350 or whatever it is, that was your fucking signature. Guy's like, you bought these, and they're tucking them into the guy's fucking stretcher as he's being wheeled out. You bought these from me. You sold me these. And then I looked at myself. I was like, I'm not going anywhere. This place is fucking awesome. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the next day, the guy has a Bunker Ramo, which was the first type of Bloomberg installed in his hospital room, and he's on the phone trading it with his specialist clerk down on the floor. That was very exciting for me, as opposed to some guy who had just started in an accounting firm and said, I just balanced the books on a local Papa John's.
So would you say that situation where you're kind of pumping up Home Shopping Network, what's the difference between that and like meme stocks? That's essentially what's happening, right?
Home Shopping Network was real stock, right? Like GameStop.
Well, so is AMC.
Absolutely, but it's not where it was. Like, so that's a pack mentality trade, and that's closer to stock manipulation than just, you know what, chaps, as I'm saying this out loud, it's almost the exact same thing, but it was a lot less efficient, right? Because Dan only got on there for 15 minutes at 11 o'clock on Tuesday, as opposed to, Roaring Kitty just pounding into your fucking head that you got to buy.
Hundreds of thousands of people
these guys are fucking short. Let's squeeze the shorts on the big boys and all that kind of shit.
With AMC, they were just trying to squeeze the shorts. With like Home Shopping Network, they weren't trying to like
long onlys. Yeah. It's just people looking to have it in their portfolio.
But if you do that, right, it would make it rocket up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you
did that guy buy a bunch of it before he would go on those shows?
If somebody Googles Dan Dorfman, I think he might have gotten in trouble for
insiders.
I don't think and I don't know if he even did it in his own account, which sometimes is worse, when his aunt was buying Home Shopping Network a couple hours before. And you know what I mean?
His aunt's actually Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, exactly. So I had all this stuff happen to me on the floor, and I met all these characters. I was trading Viacom and Viacom B during the Paramount and Blockbuster takeovers. And so my father-in-law, who is probably about 5'7", 5'8", seemed like he was 6'10" to me. Just a badass. Big fucking gorilla mitts on him. And we were, like I mentioned casually, robbing the public. But, as a specialist, you are sort of using whatever you can to make money. And, like, I'm just sitting back. The guy next to me is, like, just so nervous. You know what I'm saying? Like, everyone's covered in fucking sweat. We're in a huge crowd. Can I tell them that story? Or we fucking
No, yeah.
Huge fucking crowd. And to your point, nobody, it wasn't like a computer thing. The computer stuff was the easy money for us. People like Donnie, who would just put 1,000 through the dot, used to get fucking raped. But somebody who get their 1,000 shares to buy through a $2 broker had a little bit of finesse. So I used to have $2 brokers and house brokers all in front of me in a deal stock, Viacom B, the non-voting stock. And if the market was 34 1/8 a quarter, there was 10 people looking to sell stock at a quarter. There was 20 people looking to buy stock at an eighth. Because right now, that's what the deal was priced at. So any asshole who'd come in through the machine to buy 10,000 shares at a quarter, it would have to be whacked up with all the people who wanted, to do that. And as a result, people would not want to leave the crowd and miss some random, oh, fuck, you were just in the bathroom, 250 came in for sale. We all got 20 grand. Mm-hmm. Knowing that 20 grand could be flipped out in an arbitrage market and you make money on it right away. It's like free money. So being on a match on an open outcry market was a huge thing for house brokers and $2 brokers. And $2 brokers are essentially whores. I was one. And it was called the $2 brokers because we used to charge like $2 for every 100 shares we executed, which doesn't exist anymore. So $2 brokers were just other representatives who didn't work for big houses like Citigroup or JP Morgan or stuff, but they could represent Citigroup and JP Morgan because, like I said, they were just whores. And in a good way. My in-laws were
a pro whore podcast.
Yeah, sex work is real work. So we're sitting there and, 250 comes in for sale and, Rick, my father-in-law, would be like 20, 20, 20. And then he just touched the principal button. So I would know that 200 just went out to the crowd and 50 stays in with us. So we're like making money too. All of a sudden, there's one guy in the crowd. I'll even say his name. His name was Danny Donner. And Danny was one of the nicest guys in the world. Did I ever tell you about Danny?
Probably.
I think he was a Shylock because he always had thousands of dollars on him. So like if you're ever late on your rent, what do you need? Type thing. Oh, I need $7,000. Okay, no problem. Boom.
Michael Cicerone type of guy.
Yeah. And Danny had 2 elbows. It was fucking weird. His right arm was a nunchuck.
Yeah. Danny, and, 2 elbows.
Yeah. And he knew what everything was worth.
Yeah.
So he could go and trade the arbitrage on a gold stock here in Canada. Like all of a sudden he'd walk down You ever see the old men who go spider hunting in bars looking for the last shot in the bottle because they know it's for free? Like those guys have a
no, I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh, spider hunt. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Do you have time?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you ever see old like Irish guys at bars, like I used to go to Jim's Marina on Garrettson Avenue. That's where I became a man. And like there were guys who would come in there and be like, and they would know it was about 2 shots left. So they'd be like, give me a creme de menthe. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you got down one, the second shot, if it was less in the bottle, it was for free. So you go spider hunting.
I
you know what I mean?
love
So that was the whole deal.
Yeah.
So Danny was similar with that. He'd be like, Barrick Gold is trading at 12 and a quarter, and then I can sell it right here. I can buy it at a quarter. And then he'd be able to arbitrage all in his fucking head. Absolute fucking genius. Also had a terrible case of hemorrhoids. So he didn't want to leave the crowd. And I swear to God, like I'm a young kid. And I see him open up his pants, take down his underwear to a point where I saw part of his stem, reach in, grab a tux, boom, leaves it right on the garbage pail. This bloody fucking rag that he just wiped his bloody hemorrhoids with.
Yeah.
It looked like the flag of Switzerland, right? Like that's the cross one?
Yeah.
And my father-in-law, who was trading Viacom B now at the time, huge fucking stock for the American Stock Exchange, says stop trading. You only stop trading for emergencies. When you stop trading, you actually hit a button and the ticker tape stops for your stock. Huge fucking no-no. You have to explain why you did it afterwards. My father-in-law was like a little bit of a rebel. And he said, Danny, look at that. Never fucking do that again in my crowd. You need to go and take a leak, grab a smoke. You give it to this big dope here, meaning me, and I'll make sure you get on a match. And those were the type of fucking people that we dealt with. Danny was a millionaire who was wiping his bloody ass in front of me just so he can get 20,000 shares of fucking Viacom being on the offer. So I don't know other professional industries that operate like that.
No.
It's where you can hustle and fucking cut corners and do little things and do it like Wall Street was back then. It sucks now. Fucking blows now. But back then, man, it was a movie every day. It was a fucking movie every day.
Do you think some of these people were wearing diapers on the trading floor?
I hope. I mean, it'd be tough to tell anyone that you were.
Yeah.
But like, and that's another phenomenon. Like, back then.
Dumping your pants while you're checking the NASDAQ.
Just made $1 million while having
this guy,
my pants.
This guy's fucking dedicated.
Out as he had the heart attack and he's shitting himself. It's okay because he had the diaper on.
He's got like a straw he's shitting through.
But it's like, $5,000 suits and the pants are all beat up. If you know Wall Street, whenever people on Wall Street would go and buy suits, you would always buy one jacket and 3 pairs of pants for the same suit. And because if you wore that suit to work, you went up to the members lounge, took off your jacket, you hung it up, you put on your floor smock, so your jacket never got any wear and tear. Then you took off your fucking Gucci loafers and you put on your fucking nurse's walking shoes. And then you went down there and you were obviously wearing your suit pants, your tie all day with the smock over it. So you had these guys that were impeccably dressed, the zipper-head Italian guys, slip back, with the fucking part down the middle. And it was just very, like when they'd go and take a note, you see like the diamonds and the fucking watches. It was captivating. Yeah. It was very fucking captivating.
So you were a guy growing like high school. I'll glaze you a little bit because Donnie was rude about the palate thing.
Thank you.
He does have a great palate.
Yeah, he does. Valedictorian, obviously getting into law school, Notre Dame. Do you think a lot of the appeal for you was the like battle of wits? Like you're in there with obviously other people are crazy smart, doing a bunch of math like on the fly and ready to go. Was that like the intellectual battle? Because I know you're a Golden Gloves guy too. Like the competition, was that something that really...
That's an excellent fucking question. And like the way that you made me change my mind already on Dan Dorfman being like a meme stock guy, I wonder if the competitiveness, because when I was competitive in an academic circle, and I wasn't, like, I was pretty good, I was a very good student up until college. College, I got out, and all that stuff, and did well on my boards and stuff. It's the only reason I made a pretty good good law school. And when you got down there, and again, there are going to be people who are in investment banking and stuff, that is different.
Okay.
That is top of the class. Like when I used to recruit, when I was a trader on the desk at Citigroup, I was one of their recruiters. So they'd send me to Notre Dame. And back then I always grabbed the smartest guy, the second smartest guy, girl with the biggest tits. I don't know. Like, it was nothing. Investment banking, you had to have a letter from the fucking senator to get like that. So on the trading side, it was more people who were clever, right? A lot of the people, like my father-in-law never went to college, and I consider him one of the captains of industry back when he was doing his thing.
That's wildly impressive.
You were battling wits with guys that were non-traditional hustlers.
Street smarts.
Street smarts to the definition. Can I tell another story?
Yeah.
Ronnie Vivenzio is one of the nicest fucking guys I work with. His name was Ronnie Vivenzio.
Sounds like a scumbag.
He looked exactly like you think he looks in your
a bad fella.
Yeah, he looked exactly like. And his son, Augie Vivenzio, I wound up working with years later. And Augie, just another fucking just beautiful guy. These two Italian dudes, but Ronnie looks like he was Ronnie Vivenzio. Yeah. He looked like he was, in Goodfellas or something like that. And Ronnie was always dressed to the nines. And the whole deal, nicest guy in the world. Hair was impeccable. And he told me a story. And again, like you have the mindset of somebody who's a sensible, intelligent guy. He's like, kid, I got to tell you, I went to a wedding this week. And I was with my wife and my two kids. One of the kids was Augie. I had learned years later. And I got a little bit ahead of myself. I'm driving home. I'm on the LIE. And wouldn't you know it, half a mile from my house. And that's when I decided to fall asleep. And, my car goes this side, bangs into this divider, goes in this side, bangs into this divider, and then kind of, boom, whatever, on the side of the road. Cops come, and all that. Cops come. Luckily, I knew the cop. There was no breathalyzers or anything like that. And they got me home, and I look in the back seat, and my kids, no seat belts or anything like that, and not a scratch on him because he had one of those big Mercedes, the big ones, S-Class, right? Back then, S500 was the Mafia staff car back then. He's like, so, blah blah. He's like, but I got extremely lucky, and all that. So at the end of it, as I'm listening to the story, he's like, so you know what the lesson is? And I said, don't drink and drive. He's like, no, you fucking idiot. You get yourself some money, you buy a Mercedes, the best fucking car in the world. And that's the fucking mindset. Like, you know what I mean? And so you have to sort of, I had to sort of tailor it a little bit. And I loved it. I love that less academic way that they had, as opposed to if I was upstairs trying to develop algorithms or, trying to get some sort of edge in a more academic way. Yeah.
Nowadays, a lot of people will use Adderall if they have a very high stress job. That wasn't really around back when you were on the stock trading floor. How prevalent was cocaine?
Yeah, so cocaine was huge.
It's like the movies?
Yeah, so cocaine was huge. I won't drop names or anything like that, but there was like one booth in the American Stock Exchange always had it there. Like people would just kind of leave their bag. It was almost like take one, leave one type thing. It was rampant alcoholism. Like there was rampant alcoholism throughout the floor. And cocaine use was also big upstairs. One of the good things about the guys on the floor is, even though I didn't complain, I kind of waxed nostalgic about how busy we were from 9:30 to 4. By 5 o'clock, there's nobody left on the floor. So you went out and you did your damage to yourself if you wanted to, but you could also go home, right? Some of these investment banking guys, they don't leave the office till 9, so they need to have that little extra bit. So I would think that now perhaps it's worse for those dudes who are burning the midnight oil, but for floor guys who are doing the 9:30 to 4 thing, it wasn't as bad. It was still everywhere. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean, I spilt more Coke on my time on Wall Street than you'll ever do. So, but it's one of those things where I think like now all the more designer-ish and Adderall-y type stuff is probably more needed.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure for a lot of those guys, even though they could go home at 5, they have so much adrenaline pumping from being on the floor that they're like, now I just want to hit the bars and drink.
Yeah. Because if you go home, you'd be hitting your wife. Like, you know what I mean? Or something like that. Like, I think there was a release. So Wall Street bars in and around, Harry's, and like I used to go to O'Hara's, like I said, but all the steakhouses and all that kind of stuff, the bars themselves, before you get on Long Island Railroad or the ferry down to, New Jersey or any kind of thing, would just be packed with people. So like it was a big booze thing. Wolf of Wall Street, right? Like I've done a little bit with the dude, Jordan from Wolf of Wall Street, and
same. crazy guy.
Yeah, but you know what I mean?
Lunatic,
Like, so there's a little bit of a glorification there. But when, you know, the whole idea of just sucking down 3 or 4 martinis at lunch, you know, for him, that never happened to us because we never took fucking lunch. But instead, we'd have milkshakes brought in, and milkshakes were margaritas that were in milkshake cups. You know what I mean? So you'd be sitting there. But we were keenly aware about how much money we were handling, so you could never be that fucked up during the day because it was the easiest way to get fucking fired.
Yeah,
you know,
Balfour, Jordan. Yeah, when we were doing the interview, he was like, "Hey, do you have a whiskey or anything that you're drinking during the interview?" And I was like, no. And he was like, well, we're not starting until you do.
Oh, okay.
And so I went and got one. We drank together. That interview was like 3 hours because we were both getting a little slosh, and the dude just has story after story. You've talked a lot about like the pace and how much you did enjoy the pace. What about the negatives? Was there ever any point where you're like, I got to get the fuck out of here? This is too much.
Yeah. You know, growing up with my dad being what he did, when he first came to this country, he was 19. He was by himself, came over by boat, never wore underwear until he came to this country type guy. And the only
I didn't
people
know you were second generation. How did I not know that?
Yeah, my dad was born on a small island off the coast of West Cork called Horse Island, and my mom was born in Dublin. So I'm first generation.
All right.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
And
First.
And so when he came over here, nobody wanted to. So they were building Manhattan. So my dad put the antenna on the top of the World Trade Center, the original. Like my dad, you know, we were going across the Brooklyn Bridge. It was before my younger brother was born. So Terrence and I must have been maybe, I don't know, we're Irish twins, so like 9 and maybe 8 and 7. And my dad would pull over into the service lane and jump out. Buddy Rossi, because he had so many friends who were steel workers. And he'd be like, kids, come out and say hello to Mr. Rossi. So you'd either have to get out of the car on this side where cars are zipping by on the Brooklyn Bridge, or get out on this side where you could see the fucking water. But it was just like nothing to him. You know what I mean? But I was very privy to my father going to a lot of wakes and funerals as a young man, because it was mainly Irish, Native Americans, and Norwegians for some reason. Squareheads, they used to call them. As a matter of fact, there's a little slur for you. Because a lot of those people were...
Norwegians were called?
Yeah, they used to call them squareheads. Yeah, yeah.
You can call Norwegians anything you want.
I think so, yeah. And so a lot of people would... and my dad's not a drinker. I bucked the trend. But he was always like mangled. Like my dad, if you look at his hands... Like,
did he used to be a drinker and then got sober?
He was never a drunker.
He never was. Now, was that because his father was a drinker? That
no,
he was like...
my grandfather, his father, fathered my Aunt Josephine, I think, when he was 72. Like, I come from like solid stock. Okay. Like, I am by far a disgrace compared to these fucking thoroughbreds. But anyway, like, I realized that I was starting to see that on Wall Street too. Guys who are way too young. You know, I won't drop the guy's name, but you know, specialists that I knew and Annie knew. You know, he jumped out of the apartment across the street from where Alexander Hamilton is buried. You know, he's buried at Trinity Church. Trinity Church is in between the two stock exchanges. And he made it all the way across in the air. And then when he landed in the graveyard, and he lopped his own head off on a fucking tombstone. Like, so you saw a little bit of that. So you realize that.
Wait, you saw that? Or
no, I didn't see that. But like, you see stories like that. You see about guys who are dying early. Like, you know what I mean? Who are dying early, or who are seeing, you know, I had my first colonoscopy. By the time I was 23, I probably had 6 of them. Like, you know, I've had more colonoscopies than haircuts. Like, so there was that type of stuff that you put in the back of your head and said, no, we'll do another round. Like, but it was always kind of there. I thought that was one of the negatives. It turned into something where you started to see some nepotism, which would fuck with you a little bit. But for the most part, it's not as bad as now. It was like purely based on what you could do. Like, you know what I mean? So that was a little bit refreshing. The negatives, once I went upstairs to trade, it was uber political. It worked for some assholes sometimes too. So yeah, that's about it. But I think the positives outweighed, particularly between the ages of 21 and 41, you know?
Something you told me a while ago, this is related to food, is that you went out for a really fancy Wall Street dinner and they were eating some type of bird that is now illegal to eat. And that just sounds like the most
so it was the sparrows. It was ortolan.
Ortolan. Have you ever heard of
Ortolan?
No, I've never heard
It's like a songbird.
O-R-T-O-L-A-N.
that they
Like
it's like
whippoorwill.
It's the biggest like fuck you
that's
money.
That's an Ortolan right there.
Eat, I think. Yeah.
So what they do is
search like Ortolan
illegal
restaurant.
Ortolan eating.
Yeah, illegal Ortolan eating.
That doesn't look like the juice is worth the squeeze. That bad boy's
It's
tiny.
not.
It's
You're
like a
just eating
whippoorwill.
it to be like, I'm rich as fuck and I can eat Ortolan.
Yeah, you did it because you could. So what you'll do, you see that second picture?
Yeah.
You had to put a napkin over your head. We used to put a cloth napkin over our heads, take the Ortolan by the beak, put it in, eat it whole, and put the beak down. That was the tradition for it. I used to belong to an eating club where you would eat different things all the time. You know, like so while other people going to Panda Express, I was eating Panda. So they were doing like Ortolan and shit like that. So that was probably it was illegal. But it was one of the weirder things I've ever had.
Like bones and shit too?
Yeah, they were so small. So what they did was
Like chicken's feet kind of?
somebody please write in too. I believe they pour hot oil over these. And these birds aren't very plump at all. So they'd obviously feather them or pluck them, whatever you want to call it. They'd pour the hot oil over them, seasoned real simple, and then you pop them in like a little, like a chicken finger, bones and all.
It seems like you should be able to eat those.
Yeah, I would think so too.
For real. Like, what's the difference between a chicken and that bad boy? Yeah. And I would bet you could have those ready for the table in 3 weeks.
And
like from
from
egg to that 3
From egg
weeks.
to that size?
Yeah.
Are they endangered? Is that why? Or is just frowned upon eating a cute little bird like that?
But yeah, so that type of stuff was always something that would turn people on, Don. Like you got to think that. So 93. So it's 1998, and all of a sudden, I invite you to a cigar tasting, right? Mm-hmm. And we rent out a cappella. I have a small guy in the corner just rolling cigars for us, small ones, little dog walker cigars, and you have like 4 or 5 during the night. While Tony Fantastico, who is the maitre d' at Acapella on Jimmy Bogart Square in downtown Manhattan, I don't even know if Acapella is still there, and they would serve you the greatest fucking food in your life. We drink the greatest wine, Bertani Amarones, like they were fucking water, and we'd sit there, smoke cigars. You come home to your wife, and she'd be like, "You need to hang your belt in the garage because you just smell like a Cuban taint." Like, you know what I mean? But all those little experiences made me money because some asshole from, I don't want to mention the fucking, who went with me, went up the next day and was like, I'm telling all my friends about, oh, by the way, take $1 million to buy. Like that was how business got done. Spend some to make some, right? Type thing. So I can't tell you how many, you go out. I used to take this one guy out to restaurants, and every steakhouse in Manhattan, all the good ones, had a pair of his reading glasses. So when he would sit down.
God, what a legend.
When he would sit down, come over, I guess I'll say Mr. Baker, and would give Jack his reading glasses. He would go pick out, and if somebody would give him a glass of wine with their hand on the fucking bulb of the glass, open me up another one.
Okay.
You might as well put your fucking foot in it.
I love that.
And then when we were,
what a legend.
When we were doing our, I told you this, when we were doing our wedding invites, we had like 300 something people invited to the wedding. Everybody said yes. And when we were cutting down the list, it was that gentleman and my buddy who I did a lot of coke with. But I said, no, I got to have this guy. No. And he's like, we got to have this guy. And we wound up going with both. And this guy gave me, I think, $70 in cash. Jack gave us $10,000. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it
really is Godfather shit, because that's Michael Cicerone. Like, that's exactly how it would go down.
Yeah. And
I love when you talk wine, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I would tell you right now, Jack. I would tell you right now, chaps, the people that you meet, even before I got married, maybe it was Erdman, one of my father-in-law's biggest customers, heard you getting married. I'm sure I'm going to have a drink at your house one of these days. Didn't come to my wedding, didn't do anything, but all of a sudden, he's like, I only drink out of these types of glasses. Can you just keep them on hand? And he sent me like 6 fucking, etched fucking crystal tumblers that I still have. He's dead. He's never been to my house or anything like that. But I will tell you that if I ever drink out of them, if you ever came to my house, I would pour you a fucking scotch in it, and you would know the story of that guy.
That's
like,
great.
You know what I'm saying? Like that to me is a legend. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like game-winning threes don't turn me on as much as the fact that jerk off thought that he was that fucking important that he gave me. You know what I mean? Like that's how some people could look at it. To me, that guy's a fucking legend. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but maybe I'll give you a pair of chopsticks. I only use these.
I mean, everybody wants to have like that bar experience where you go in, they know your order already. Because if you go in with like Arturo's for you, like they know exactly what you want. One of my favorite stories from that is John Boehner, former Speaker of the House. So me and Kate go to his house. He wants to do the interview at his actual place. So we're like, cool. We go to his place in D.C., and he sits us down, and we have the interview. You could on the interview, it sounds like a Lil Wayne thing, when he hits the lighter and then like he's gonna smoke a joint. Throughout the podcast, he's just ripping heaters in his house, like just smoking cigarette after cigarette.
Cigarettes inside? I thought you were gonna say cigar.
Inside. I mean, he legit over the hour probably smoked 10.
Yeah,
like it was nonstop smoking cigarettes. When it was over, he was like, "Do you want to go with me to essentially his Arturos?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So we get there. It's several congressmen, a couple senators, and him. And we sit down. As soon as he gets in there, the wait staff comes in. He doesn't say shit. He just goes up to this little room that they have reserved for him. They put 4 bottles of this Chianti that is like his Chianti. They have cases in it only for Mr. Boehner, for Speaker Boehner is what they say. So he gives me a glass of this Chianti, the best Chianti I've ever had by far. And then with all these people, he's like, they get around to me. They're like, "What do you want?" I go, "I'll have the spaghetti and meatballs." And John Boehner's like, "What the fuck did you just say, Marine?" And I had been out for like 8 years at this point. He was like, "You don't come with the former Speaker of the House and a bunch of elected officials and order spaghetti and meatballs." And I was like, "Actually, because I am a Marine, I do. I have the spaghetti and meatballs."
Wow.
And he was like, "I fucking love it." He like, at that point, he's like, "Let me give you my number." When we were walking back, he tried to FaceTime George W. Bush. We were going. Yeah.
I mean, legendary. Even with the Arturos, what Chaps is talking about is Arturos in Midland Park, New Jersey. Tell Mario I sent you. So it's my favorite local place. And they really taken us. You feel like your family when you're there. So I get the corner seat at the bar. I haven't gone in ages because I've been trying to lose weight, and Arturo's was one of the reasons why I was dying.
And you have been losing weight? Congrats on that.
And one day, like I would always take pictures there because Andy and I would probably go 3 times a week. And the one day that I put a picture from there where I had this beautiful fucking sausage Palermo in front of me, and they do it on a bed of broccoli rabe. They do a chevelade, which is like one of those small pinwheel sausages. They grill them. So they grill a chevelade on top of a bed of broccoli rabe with just hot cherry peppers on top of it, filled garlic and all that shit. It's a beautiful looking dish. Took a picture of that. But someone had noticed the remote control next to the dish. And so then every picture I ever took because when I would sit down, they'd have my drink ready for me, and they'd give me the remote control for the TV, because there was one TV on the side that if you came to see a game, you would probably use the other 2 TVs that you can sort of see more at the bar. But this one, I would put on Naked and Afraid. I'd have a couple of fucking martinis, a big fucking meal, and then so they'd leave me my thing. And more people were impressed with that than any dish that I could have put on social media. They're like, "You have a restaurant where they give you a fucking..." And you just kind of take it for granted. But
that's your reading glasses.
It's my reading glasses. It's exactly what it is. And so, shout out again, Mario.
So we do a segment called Getting Cultured, and I think we would be making a mistake if we didn't have you tell people how do you select a wine, and nothing more than $50, right?
Oh, so now it's like Large is going to get us cultured.
Yeah, he's going to get us cultured.
Okay.
Which is honestly the way it should be. We're not going to teach Large a whole lot about culture. So, but the listener would benefit.
Yeah.
Well, what do you have to teach?
Well, no, how about this?
I would love if you guys, I don't know
anything. He teaches us about wine, and then we can teach him about something travel related. Because, how well traveled are you, would you say, outside of the country?
Probably slightly above average. Cool. I mean, I'm nothing compared to you, and I'm nothing compared to you. So if you want to talk about what you guys could teach me, the travel part is huge. I don't drink brown. So the bourbon part falls on deaf ears to me. Remember we were at the place in San Antonio? You were like, "Oh, this place got all these whiskeys." I'm allergic to brown. I break out in handcuffs, right? I know my limits.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that
honestly.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. But certainly on the travel end, I couldn't touch your guys' job. I never went to Disney World till I got married. But I used to go to Ireland quite a bit just because I'd go visit so you know what I mean? So I spent more time in Europe than in Florida as a kid. And then when I got a little money, I did a little bit of traveling, but nothing compared to either of you guys, particularly with your service and with you just being a fucking vagabond. You know what I mean?
Okay, well, how about you teach us about wine, and then you can just ask us a question about some place that maybe you'd be interested in traveling in the future.
Right.
And maybe we'd have some tips for you.
Yeah, places that we've been that we think, knowing large, that he would enjoy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I drink more sake than I do beer. I drink more sake than I do red wine. No, not red wine. I misspoke. Than white wine. I don't drink
that's
white wine.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those
never
things.
drink white wine.
I've never been to Asia, and it's something that I don't know if it's something that I've always wanted to do because I could have. You know what I mean? It's just nothing that I've ever been overly serious about. And now I'm more and more serious about going over there. And I got to be honest, and it sounds like I'm just kind of going back to the same old thing. A lot of it's the food.
Yes.
Like
Just an Asian fucking 7-Eleven. Just to have the egg salad sandwich on the milk bread. Like just all that shit. Like
that sandwich is.
And you know what I mean? But so as far as the Middle East goes, right? I don't have a huge. Whereas you had a yearning to make sure that you had gone there and done this. You had a yearning to stay alive while you were there. Like, you know what I mean? You get to go to exotic places and, do all that kind of stuff. I know it's the old tagline, go to exotic places and kill people. But like you guys were, it's never been my way. Like I could be very happy just going to and from Cork for the rest of my life as far as traveling. But otherwise I would love to hear how you guys think I would do in Asia, because I always thought I wouldn't fit in the rooms. Like, you know what I mean? Like as 6'5", it'd be more like a Godzilla type thing going by.
There's definitely some spots in Tokyo that you would struggle sitting down.
Yeah, that's when you go out to eat in Japan and they just have those tables where you sit on the ground. Yeah, I struggle with that because I'm like my hamstrings are so tight. Like I can't sit cross-legged. My knees are so bony. I can't like sit on my knees.
Yeah, if you struggle with lotus pose or downward facing dog, you're going to struggle eating at a lot of Japanese spots.
That's my problem. Yeah.
They're about 24, 2 feet off the ground, and you have to sit like crisscross applesauce underneath it. But the varied cuisine in Tokyo, I think you would really, really like.
Yeah. I think you should go for
So you're saying if I was to go to Asia, right?
Yeah.
The place that I have to go to, and I know Asia's a big place, is Tokyo. That's
for you, yes.
Yeah.
And you agree?
Yeah, that would be my opinion, especially now that you're starting a food show. Like, think about how much content you could film for that.
Fucking John Kelly, who we're obviously both close friends with, most handsome guy in Barstool.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that even up for debate?
No.
No.
I mean, I'm not gay, but I would give him a jump.
Yeah, I think so. Jet ski. I mean, there's a couple of guys who are very good looking. I mean, you guys are all, but John is a very good looking guy. And he was like, next time we do something like that turkey thing, like you guys went for the hair plugs, I would never get hair plugs. I'm too far gone. But if I would have stopped over there for 2 days, just did a shitload of fucking Turkish food, and then came home while you guys were there for however long you were there, and Barstool's going to be dropping soon. I thought I saw the logo for it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it may be out by the time we drop this podcast.
Okay.
But yeah, right after the Super Bowl. So Feb 10th would be the first episode.
So that would be a dream for me. Like, I'm more of a, let me ask you, if you go to Tokyo tomorrow, you guys, how long would you have to go for ideally?
I think 4 days.
Okay.
I mean, if I was going to fly all the way over there, I'd want to be in Japan for at least 7 days.
See, 7 days is impossible for me.
But
I'm a 3 day. Like I don't like to go anywhere, and I know that's very ignorant because go to here, go to this. I tend to get like I just want to go home after 3 or 4 days, no matter where I've gone.
And this one for you, that's business class because it's like if you are going to do 4 days, I think you got to go business class because that's a 14-hour flight.
Right.
But
longer from New York, probably 17 hours from New York.
But if you're going to spend all that money on the business class seats, I feel like you'd really want to stay longer than 4 days.
Urinals in his bathroom.
I mean,
3.
Fucking PFT flew out to 3 urinals. Damn. PFT flew out to Hong Kong for 48 hours, something like that.
Yeah, that's
and that
crazy.
That was insane.
Yeah.
And he only did business class on the way there, and then flew normal on the way back. If you can only do it one way, you got to do it on the way back.
Back for sure.
That's when you're exhausted.
But the types of food that you could get, like, because you are an adventurous eater, unbelievable palate. I feel like if you go there, like the types of sushi that you like, horse sashimi is available there, which you're not going to get in America. You have like you have multiple types of octopus, not just the one that you will get from Spain, but you have like the squid there is fantastic. Like everything's fresh. There was a place that I used to, when I lived in Okinawa, pretty far from Tokyo, but 2 blocks from my house, that it was like a sushi club. You could pay for a certain amount of sushi. You would pay a certain amount a month, and then you could get unlimited sushi. Like every day you could go in there if you want. And the only thing they had available that day was the thing that the like cook and his son caught that day. So they would go out and catch everything. So you couldn't go in and have like, well, today I want to have the tuna. You have whatever the fuck they got.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's something you would love.
Yeah.
And not only would I love that, I'd love to adhere to whatever tradition was around it. Like you say, the crisscross applesauce at this, even though you're right, my knees are bad. Like I want to do that. I don't know if they make a kimono for me, but I want to wear kimonos. I want those, I just got through watching Shogun. I want the whole fucking thing. Yeah. Like, you know?
I mean, there are a lot of restaurants where you can just sit in a normal chair and stuff too. But
I also want to go to, not wet markets, but I also want to do that street food stuff too, you know, fried scorpion on a stick type shit, you know what I mean? Or, you know, the okonomiyaki, you know, the octopus balls, like see those just being pumped out by vendors. Like that's something that I think I can do. I'm not a huge heat guy. I can handle heat. I like hot dishes, but Tokyo's I don't want... What's that?
Tokyo's not
There's
bad.
not a lot of heat in Japanese food. Yeah. I mean, compared to Chinese, like if you have Sichuan food or Hunan food, very spicy. Thai food can be very spicy. Indian food, very spicy. Japanese as a whole, not very spicy.
Right. Let's say salt heavy.
Yeah.
Salt. I mean, the main type of spice they have is just the wasabi kick.
Yeah.
And then they'll have some
perfect type of spice. Horseradish or wasabi for me is the
it's the greatest. You ever been to St. Elmo's in Indiana?
I have their cocktail sauce all the time.
It's awesome, right?
I have shrimp in my refrigerator right now. I get my St. Elmo's from Costco. Actually,
get out of here! Really,
I love it so much.
I still haven't been. I still haven't been to Costco because Clem obviously he likes to make promises.
Yeah, he does.
He never fucking fulfills them. But I still haven't done it. So Tokyo would be the place for me to go.
Tokyo also apparently has some of the best pizza in the world. Just like Japanese chefs take so much pride in their food that even when they're making a Western dish, they're going to keep on trying it until they've perfected it.
Right.
McDonald's even looks like the pictures on the menu.
Yeah. Can you pull up Frankfurt, Germany, just on a map?
Now, that city, I don't know what you're going to say about it.
Go ahead.
I've heard it's pretty boring.
Yeah.
You know, it was completely leveled in World War II, so it's all like new. It is the financial capital, I think, or one of the finance capitals of mainland Europe.
Right. I used to go there quite a bit on business, and when you said that there was great pizza in Japan, as an asshole from Brooklyn, that's perfect. As an asshole from Brooklyn, I scoffed. You know what I mean? Like how fucking myopic. And I remember when I was in Frankfurt, and these guys, Frankfurt is not maybe the bustling down that you want it to be, but I used to go with like these guys who are crazy. So we used to go to like these speakeasies that just serve Rieslings. It was fucking weird. And it was the first time I ever had a slaughter bowl. You ever do a slaughter bowl?
No.
Oh, I went out drinking sweet wine all fucking night. Got into a fight with some guy because I said he was bird dogging me. He's like, "What is a bird dog?" I was like, "I'll fucking show you." Like the whole deal. Get up the next morning, I'm hung to the gills. I go to like a tavern or a brow house or whatever the fuck you want to call it in Germany. I get a big stein of whatever they have, Hefeweizen or whatever, and the woman says, "Ugh," like she looked at me. She's like, "What do you order?" And I was like, she's like, "Oh my God, you need a slaughter bowl." I was like, "I think I do." And she brought me out a fucking bowl, a white ceramic bowl that was way too fucking big. And it was just filled with grilled meats, organ meats, blood sausages. There was like, back bacon. Like you ever see a molcajetes that you get in the Mexican restaurants when it comes out in the actual molcajete? Like, and I've never seen a slaughter bowl since then. I've never seen anyone offer one. I don't see them online. And a slaughter bowl is one of the greatest fucking meals that I ever had. But I also had an Italian meal there that I thought was one of the greatest ones that I ever had. I went into the fucking kitchen and I kissed the chef and we're doing shots of Strega or whatever the fuck it was. I said, I can't believe this place is better in Brooklyn. Guy's like, we can almost see Italy from where we are, you fucking idiot. Like, you know what I mean? And they were serving Northern Italian food. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you pull back, now look where Brooklyn is in comparison. And that's how myopic you get living in fucking New York. You just become an absolute douchebag. So whatever.
Do we have any guesses on how you say slaughter bowl in German?
Schlotterbollen.
Schlatterplatt.
Schlatterplatt. Is it what I said? Just the grilled meat? Yeah. A lot of offal and stuff in it.
Something like this.
Fucking
I feel like
perfect.
that would make me retch.
No, she gave it to me. Big stein of ice cold beer, like I said. Another plate that had brown bread on it, like it was Lord of the Rings type brown bread, with a big fucking crock of sweet cream butter and a couple of fucking mustards in the toothpaste tubes.
Oh, well,
so
that's
they're
fine.
good.
I thought that's it.
So you
like
fucking eating it with buttered bread and drinking beer and dipping it in mustard, and it was it was restorative for a big drunk guy. All right, so then Tokyo, I'll put it on the list.
And I think you would also, for Twisted History, love doing like the Yakuza museums and
I'd love that.
Like Tokyo Vice is incredible. Like I think you would have a good time. Walk the vending machines that you'll see there with like dirty underwear.
Yeah, filthy panties.
Large will love those.
I love those. Yeah,
I know you like dirty underwear.
It's starting to get hard.
So let's talk wine.
Yeah. So you guys are already further along, right? Like I know where you are as far as being a drinker, and I know that you also know kind of what you like, also, right? As far as this goes, we're not starting. Are you starting from scratch with wine?
I'm sure.
Actually, I grew up with going to Italy.
Oh my
Jesus
God! What
Christ.
a fucking
this guy
hardo.
trying to defend Tucson so fucking hard.
But I mean, when I want wine, I go to the store. I buy a bottle of Cabernet, not the cheapest bottle in the store, but like kind of close to it. Maybe like $5 above the cheapest bottle. So yeah, I don't really know good wine.
I'm at a point now where I don't know good wine either, but I think I know bad wine. Right, like that's where you go. And I tell people just starting out, which isn't anybody here, and I recognize that, is that you stick with one grape for the beginning part, and then you just try a bunch of the same grape. So if you get a Cabernet now, where your wine palate is right now, and you get yourself a bottle of what did I used to do it? Willie used to do some sugar and spice. I think that's a $9 one. You got to drink it cold, and like that type. If you go and you do the 9, 20, 30. 40. There's no reason for you to be paying more than $40 retail for wine, right? And you'll start to recognize. And then once you kind of get the idea of what's good and what's bad, then you know that you like a $30 bottle of Cabernet more than others, and you try every fucking one of them. And then you'll see, wow, that Orange Swift guy is doing some really cool shit. Oh, 7 years in the desert, I'm going to try that shit. And then you'll start to get in love with a manufacturer. And then obviously, like you can't like NASCAR till you go to a race, right? Like that's what I always say. You go to a fucking vineyard one time, a real vineyard, right? Like this gentleman going to Italy is top of the food chain, but get yourself to Sonoma or Napa or stuff like that. Don't necessarily go to North Fork of New York, and then that's what's going to get you going.
Unless you want white wine.
Yeah, which I don't. I don't drink white wine.
Yeah.
So like I would say that if someone's looking for a grape and they don't want to go the traditional Cabernet route, because there are so many Cabernets out there that it's overwhelming, right? Like most popular grape, certainly in the United States, I don't know about the world. So like let's say you go a little bit deeper, a little bit chewier, and you just go with Syrahs. Like that's what I would recommend for guys like us.
Petite Syrah is where I'm at.
So Petite Syrah is different.
Yeah.
So Petite Syrah has got a different profile. The Syrah grape it's spelled different and it's different. So that's your chewiest, like the one where you can hold it up and you can't see your finger on the other side. And and if they're grown in Australia, they're called Shiraz. So a Shiraz and a Syrah, the same exact grape, just grown in different countries. So get yourself something smaller like that, and you're like, holy shit, they got. Like everyone knows all the good Pinot Noirs come out of Oregon. Like for some reason, Oregon became the Pinot Noir capital of the United States. And you'll find out, there's some Santa Barbara Syrahs that I like. And then you can become an asshole and start buying up all of those. And I just mentioned Syrah is one of the ones that I would say is a good starting point, because it's a manly fucking grape. And it's one that you want to have with a big fat steak, which I think most people do want to have. You want to have it with a fucking slaughter bowl. Like we're not looking at, and if you are looking to have it maybe with an ice cube in it and sit on the porch, I can't help you.
Like
you know what I mean?
Pinot Noir is like more juice. I feel like I like that, and I'm a Zinfandel guy too.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm good with a wine list. I'm pretty good with a wine list. I can be dangerous with a wine list if I'm not paying. So there aren't any grapes that I don't like that much. I'm not a Grenache guy. There are certain things that I stay away from. So like I said, I'm at a point now where I've been drinking wine for whatever, a functioning alcoholic for almost 40 years, and I'm at a point now where I know what I don't like.
Lambrusco?
What's that? Lambrusco? Yeah, it's very, very nice.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
That's just a sparkling red wine, pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that, and plus or tastings. Like I highly recommend wine tastings. I went to my first one when I was on Wall Street, and there was this gigantic, beautiful black woman. She looked like a linebacker, and she was like, take this ginger snap and smear it with this blue cheese and have it with this, Cabernet. And I'm like, do I do that? And it was just a different profile to where, to this day, I buy the Stella d'Oro breakfast cookies. I smear them with blue cheese, and I eat them with fucking red wine. Like,
if somebody tells you a tip like that, you fucking gotta do it.
I think
it's so off the wall that you're like, this has got to be incredible. Like, I'm not a green olive guy by any means, and like we had like a charcuterie board brought out, and it was like real green olive heavy, and I'm like, man. I fucking hate these things. I don't like martinis for that reason. And the person that was like walking us through, like, just try it. Like, try it with the cheese, try it with everything. Yeah. And I took a bite, and I was like, you motherfuckers got me.
You.
Yeah, these are delicious. But still, separate, hate. Martinis, hate. With a certain thing, love. Like, I don't like blue cheese, but that sounds like it'd be great.
Blue cheese olives in a martini?
Yeah. I hate blue cheese, my dog. I mean, yeah, so it's no offense there. I will tell you, too, like, just sitting down at bars and restaurants, and all of a sudden, you sidle up, and what's your drink? What large? What do you? Oh, Belvedere martini, up dry, shaken like an unruly toddler, right? Like something like that. But I order a couple cocktail onions on the side just because I saw somebody do it. And every now and again, I take one of those fucking flavor bombs, those vinegar bombs. It washes over your fucking mouth, basically douches your mouth. And then you take an ice cold fucking sip of vodka afterwards, or gin. And if you put them in there, it's a Gibson. So you go right the fuck in with pickled onions and ice cold vodka. Come on, man.
I mean, that's the reason why, and you shit on it for so long. Chocolate chip cookies and orange juice.
Yeah, people. Exactly. Yeah, but that deserves to be shit.
Yeah, it does. It's fair.
Yeah.
I think your food show is going to do good because I could listen to you talk about food for hours.
I spoke to Mangold. I said, Mangold, Grater's is the greatest ice cream company in the United States, and they're based out of Cleveland, I think, or Cincinnati.
Tillamook would like a word, but
they just did a collabo with Skyline Chili. So inside their newest Skyline Chili flavored ice cream, Skyline Chili is heavy cinnamon. Like they do a lot of like warm spices. So it's not like beef and that type of stuff. So it's more like a cinnamon ice cream, but I think they put the oyster crackers, which is everyone's favorite. The little fucking oyster crackers
that would be good
inside the ice cream. You know what I mean?
I bet that is good.
And he's such a huge Ohio guy, Ohio State guy, the whole deal. So I'm going to have him come on and just talk about, I think everybody, I can't name anybody at this company that I can't come in. Like if you don't cook, and I know you do, and I said to you, what do you or somebody that you know make better than anyone else? And someone inevitably will say, well, I don't do it, but my mom's stuffed cabbage I'll never have anywhere else in the world. Like, you know what I'm saying? Or even like I wrote up those 5 questions like at the end of the Inside the Actors Studio, like with something like that, because I think the repetition of it will be good. So yeah, we'll just shoot the shit about food. You'll come on, you'll right? We'll talk about the guinea pig.
For sure.
I got to resurrect that shit. Yeah.
I got a sandwich rec for you too. I don't know if we should save it for your show or
no. Is it going to be the bulgogi bagel sandwich?
No, this is a sandwich that I made this weekend.
Okay.
That I like. Maybe you try it, and then when I go on your show, you can let me know how it is.
I saw it on your Instagram.
So I call it the PB&J breakfast sandwich. It's a skirt steak, 2 toasted pieces of sourdough bread, and then I spread Thai peanut sauce on one piece of bread, pepper jelly on the other piece of bread, throw on the steak, throw on some cheese, 2 eggs, you can throw on some sauteed spinach if you want. I saw that. I was enthralled.
Sauteed spinach optional was what you'd put on the thing, right? Yeah. It looked absolutely delicious. Yeah, so I would fuck with that. The best peanut butter and jelly offshoot I ever had was they took the lobe of the foie gras. Like sometimes you get foie gras, it's like that pressed terrine more so than the actual, lobe. When you cut it and you see the vein in it. This guy had fried up a lobe, slice of a lobe of foie gras, and then on top of it, we had some sort of raspberry preserves, and we kind of spread that like peanut butter and jelly because foie gras. So anything that you can do for me, I would destroy that. So yeah, I'll make that. We could talk about it for fucking days.
Awesome. I don't know.
We're talking
if,
about Wall
like,
Street.
Yeah, we are talking about.
You want to know what to buy and sell?
Yeah, I mean, do you have any final parting words on Wall Street?
Me? Yeah. So I would, if there's one word I would say, it would be for people to stop asking me what to buy and sell, because I was never a financial advisor. Okay. Like when I started Stock Central with Dave during the pandemic, we did it. It ended in a day because I think he'd come on the show and a position went against him, so we thought this show was cursed or something like that. Like I remember, and it was one of the happier days of my life because I was fucking crazy. And then the Davey Day Trader thing had begun, and it became the behemoth that it is whenever Dave's gets a position. I was a trader, right? And I'm never going to be a trader again. Now I'm an investor. Right, like I'm more longer term. So I've always had a financial analyst. I'm very lucky. My guy Brian Dunst is, I think, the best in the world for Annie and I. I haven't bought or sold a share of stock in probably 20 years. Annie does. Yeah. Annie keeps our portfolio. Portfolio was robust in 2024 because of that bitch. But it's just not my thing. Yeah. And for guys like me who traded their whole lives, sometimes when people ask you on what they should trade, it's sort of like if you see a doctor at a party and you ask him if this is infected. It's like, calm down, I'm having a fucking drink. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not in that way that it insults me. It's not my bag. Like I took huge fucking positions, and I lost huge amounts of fucking money that I could never afford to take the positions or lose that type of money because I was doing it for bulge bracket firms and whatnot. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was never me sweating out buying, 25 shares of fucking y'all, which you should buy. That's it.
I got one last question. What's your secret? Say if someone's listened to this podcast, he also is, wait, I got to rephrase that.
Go ahead.
So my last question is just, what is your secret? Why were you the first kid in your family to go to college? You mentioned your younger brother didn't go, your older brother didn't go. Was it because you were very smart in high school, the valedictorian, that your parents were just like, you know what, maybe we should actually encourage him to pursue that route?
I think it goes back to my dad, right? Like, whereas my brothers are, hey, listen, I'm about to get into a fight. I can only take one McCarthy brother. It would be Terrence, then Neil, and then me, right? Terrence, Cornelius, Michael goes last. They're tougher guys, blue collar type dudes. Growing up and seeing what my dad used to go so my dad's a great grandfather. He's a great grandfather to my kids. Wonderful grandfather, I should say. Was he the best dad? Not necessarily, because he was never around. He was a wonderful person, wonderful father, but he was never around. So like I used to, if I woke up early as my dad was coming in because he was on a 48-hour hump because they had to rent a derrick to get this giant fucking a vault door through a window 40 stories up or something. And, when he'd come here and I'd be like, where's your beard? Part of it had chipped off because it was so like cold that day out on the iron that his beard like fell off, or like just to see that. I didn't want to do that. You know what I mean? And so I used to sit down. I used to just read the fucking encyclopedias in a chair in the corner of my thing. We used to have the World Book of Knowledge. I used to go through all A through Z and then start all over again. Whole time when I was a kid, and I was kind of voracious for information. And I think that if my dad is 5'6", 5'7", but again, he was born on an island. I think if he had the benefit of better nutrition, he'd have more length of bone. If my dad was given the opportunities that I had, education-wise, I think he could have fucking ruled the world. Like, that's how I feel about the man. Mm-hmm. But so as much as I respect him and love him, like when my father passes away, forget about it. Mm-hmm. Like, it's going to be bad. But I never wanted to be him. Like with that, I was like, I don't think I had it to do it. So that's why I went a different direction, and I worked hard. A lot of it came easy. Like when you're good in grammar school without studying too much, it gets a little bit more difficult as you go through. So I'm very lucky in that respect that a lot of it came easy. But I think when you grow up around seeing people working on the railroad, you don't want to work on the railroad all the live long day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's it.
Well, Lars, thanks for joining us. It's time to get cultured. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at BetterHelp. Drop a Pin is sponsored by BetterHelp. Think about your favorite leaders, mentors, and idols. They don't have all the information, but they do know when to ask questions to seek support from their community. It's a society that glorifies hyper-independence. It's easy to forget that we're all better when we have a support system behind us. So true. I mean, one of my favorite things about coming to Chicago is probably my neighbors like to hang out with and have like a group of like 4 or 5 dudes that I talk to about shit that's going on.
Yeah.
It's been, I mean, I hate to say the word, but it's been a little therapeutic, and they encourage you at BetterHelp to do that. It's nice to talk to your friends, but sometimes you have a little bit more than a dude who sells insurance bonds to construction companies can handle. So it's nice to talk to an actual therapist. I mean, I've been going to therapy for, when did I get shot? Probably 16 years ago. I've gone and I've used BetterHelp a ton. It's great. One of my favorite things about it is that you can talk in any way you want. If you don't click with the therapist, your mom's a therapist, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure she's had plenty of patients that are like, it's not my style, or even like move it on, and that's okay.
And the great thing about BetterHelp is that you don't have to do it in person. I know some people get nervous. They're like, I want to see a therapist, but what if I run into someone I know in the waiting room or something like that? But with BetterHelp, you can just do it from the comfort of your own home online.
Yeah, and it takes time off. Like I remember when I used to go to therapy, I would have to drive 25 minutes there, 25 minutes back, spend the hour. So it's like a 2-hour thing. Now you sign on and you're ready to go. It cuts your time in half, basically. They have a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties. You can build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/wonton today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/wonton. Let's hop back into it. All right, thanks again to Large for coming on the show. We really appreciate him. But now it's time to do a little bit of a different style of deep dive because we like to give you some history and cultural contexts. You ready to do that?
Let's do it.
All right, so I didn't know a whole lot about the origin of Wall Street. Do you?
The only thing I knew before the pod was why it's called Wall Street.
Yeah. You remember why?
Yeah, it's where when it was the New Amsterdam colony, founded by the Dutch, Wall Street is where the wall of the colony was.
Yep.
To protect it from invaders like the British or Native Americans.
Yep.
Just a giant wall going down the entire street that separated the colony from the rest of Manhattan Island.
It's weird when there's something like that is such an obvious name, like now that you know that there was a wall. It's a 12-foot wooden wall, and like Donnie said, it was built in 1653 is whenever it came about. And then in 1664, the British seized the colony, renaming it New York in 1699, and the name Wall Street stuck. And it wasn't until the 18th century that it became the financial hub that we know of it as now.
Yeah. Along those same lines, Canal Street in New York's Chinatown was called that because it used to be a canal.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
You know the Dutch, they love their canals.
They do.
They can't have a colony.
And bikes.
Can't have a colony without one. And bikes.
Big bike guys.
And bikes. But I will say New York is not the nicest place for riding a bike. They do now have bike lanes, but they are tiny.
Yeah. Well, I meant the Dutch were big bike people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, if you go to Amsterdam, not New Amsterdam, that's a great place to ride a bike. They have like bike highways that everybody uses to get to work.
Everybody's on those. Have you ever seen the videos, a documentary where they'll take those fishing magnets out and they'll throw them into the canals in Amsterdam and they just end up with a shit ton of bikes every year? It'll be, whenever they're done with it, there'll be like a mountain of rusty bikes.
That's probably the one thing you'd find if you were magnet fishing in Chicago too. Maybe a few guns as well.
Yeah, probably.
Guns and bikes.
Yeah. I want to do. Have you ever done magnet fishing?
No, but PFT has one. And he's gone magnet fishing like in the past year. I don't think he found anything cool.
I want to.
Let's try.
Yeah, let's drop a pin in a
canal. Yeah, we'll do it as a live stream once the weather warms up a little bit.
Oh, hell yeah. That'd be great.
So Wall Street.
Yep. So then it continued on in 1792. the Buttonwood Agreement was signed under a buttonwood tree. Like everything that they do there was just like, what's around here?
Yeah.
Let's fucking call it that. And that is what become, like after that, the Buttonwood Agreement is how the New York Stock Exchange was formed, which I didn't know at all. And then have you ever heard of the Panic of 1907?
There's been a lot of panics. Like, what was the panic that was Black Friday?
The stock market crash in 1929.
Yeah, that was the 1929 one.
Yeah, so that one came about because there was rampant speculation and a lack of oversight that led to Black Tuesday, which was wiping out billions of dollars and triggering the Great Depression, which is kind of like a current event thing too. Like it came about because we issued so many tariffs around the world that the other countries kind of responded to that, and that's what led to the Great Depression.
Did not know that.
I didn't know that either until I watched this historian that was talking about it, and he was like, this might be a little bit dangerous because that was the precursor for the Great Depression.
Shit. Well, hey, we have already lived through one crash in our life, the 2008 crash.
Yeah, the housing crisis and all that.
Now, you were in the military at that point, or?
Yeah, I was in Japan at that point.
Okay, so you were probably shielded from the worst of that?
Yeah, and I wasn't at the place financially where I had any stocks or bonds or anything like that, so I was pretty good. But I do one of my friends bought his first house at that time, and once the crash happened, he had bought the house like 3 months before, and once everything started dropping, he was like, my house just lost like $70,000 worth of value, and this was on a house that was like $200,000. And he said my financial advisor just told me to go into foreclosure.
Yeah. Luckily, I didn't graduate college till 2010, but the people who graduated the year before me, like, none of them were finding jobs. No. But like stocks in general, I'm still shocked at how financially illiterate I was when I graduated college. Like, I didn't know how to do taxes or anything like that. I didn't buy my first stock on my own until the pandemic.
What was it?
It was Penn.
Yes, me too.
That was your first time?
My first stock ever was Penn.
Holy shit.
And I lost my dick on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I made a lot of money at first, but then I kept on buying. This was when it was at 100. And like, I remember I was in the New York office.
To the moon, baby.
And like, I think I was talking to like Rhea, and she was like, Rhea was like, yeah, I mean, it's just like going to keep on going up.
Yeah.
And so like, I bought back in big time at 100, and now it's down at 20.
Yeah, I think I bought mine at like 65. Like I actually saw Large and Annie talking about it, and they were like, we just bought, they bought something crazy, like 50 grand, something like that, because they roll like that.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? I'm going to put like 5-10 grand in this, see what happens. A couple years later, that bad boy's 1,500. Maybe it'll shoot back up. You never know.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, as long as it's money you don't need right away, you can just wait 5 years, see if it goes up, or you can sell it and then you do like tax harvesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I barely even know what that is.
I don't know shit about finances. Like, I leave all that stuff to my spouse. I actually had to ask my wife yesterday. I reached out to her, like text her I was like, how much money do we have? Like, I have no idea how much money we have.
Okay.
I mean, I know ballpark, but I send her that text like every 6 months or so.
Okay, so you're like, all your accounts are shared and everything?
Yeah, we have completely shared accounts, and I just like everything's on automatic deposit, so I don't have to look at much.
Yes. There was a time, this was maybe 2019 or 20, I just had all of my money like in my debit card like account. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, what the fuck am I doing? And like, I talked to my dad, I was like, that's not smart, right? And he was like, no, you got to have that, like either buy some ETFs, which is like not as risky as just buying a single pen stock, or at least put it in a high yield savings account.
Yeah.
And so since 2018, I've been a lot better about that. But for a while, I just had all my money just in one debit account.
I'm an ETF guy too, but I think it's a generational thing because we're about the same age, like pretty close. Parents didn't talk about finances. Did your parents ever talk to you about like finances or anything like that?
No. I did have like my parents gifted me some stocks, or they had invested for me at like a young age, and then like after I graduated college. They're like, all right, these are technically your stocks, but I hadn't bought them or anything. So my first time buying one on my own was in 2020. But no, I didn't really talk about that. And we didn't really talk about taxes until, because you're kind of like on your parents' tax return until when? Until
after college, I think.
Yeah, after college. And then like my dad was like reminding me, he was like, hey, I think you need to file taxes.
I actually should know that better because I have a kid in college.
And I was like,
so I'm not sure.
And then at that point I was working in China getting paid under the table. So I was like, do I need to file taxes? Like I'm living in China. And they're like, yeah. They're like, no, I think you still need to file and just say like, oh, I made zero money in the US.
Oh, okay.
And if you're living abroad, if you want to know this, I think it's, it used to be your first $90K that you make abroad is not taxed. But then if you're making more than $90K, then you get taxed in the US, even if you're living abroad.
That's bullshit. I think it should only be money that you make in the US.
Yeah. So I had friends in China and they were like, as long as I'm not in the US for over like 150 or 180 consecutive days, then I won't get taxed as a US citizen or something like that.
Yeah.
Or a US resident.
I thought it was 90. Like
maybe
if you stay out at night, because I know contractors like Blackwater guys, that they would have to stay out of the country for 90 days if they wanted all their $100,000 or whatever to be tax free.
Right.
Do you think? How long do you think is acceptable to think that a bombing is funny?
That a bombing?
Yeah, like how long ago does it have to be?
It depends how many people died in the bombing.
38.
100
years.
100 years, if it's a funny bombing story.
Okay, I think it's funny.
Okay.
A horse-drawn wagon packed with dynamite exploded outside the JP Morgan, killing 38 people, but it did injure over 400. The anarchists that were responsible were never caught.
I was about to guess that because I knew back in the 1920s the type of terrorism there was anarchists.
Yeah.
And they were largely Italian, I think. So there was like a fear that
probably
if you were Italian, they were like, oh my God, is he an anarchist? And they did some damage.
Yeah, Italians back then were some wild boys.
Yeah, well, not all Italians, but the Italian anarchists, they were trouble.
Yeah, they were. Also, another question about 100 years. You know, there's finite space on Earth, especially in cities like Chicago that have huge populations, New York that have huge populations. And one of the things that happens when you go across like the Brooklyn Bridge or you go out to like Cicero here, there's these enormous cemeteries. How long do you think somebody should be buried before we could dig them up and start over? Because I don't believe in if you get buried, that should be your spot for eternity.
Well, eventually we won't have enough space in the world for that to happen.
Right. So I think every 100 years or when your last great-great-grandkid dies, dig them up.
Your last great-great-great.
So it's probably about 100 years. 100 years, 120 years. That's all you get for a grave site.
Yeah, I think when you're burying the full-size coffin, that's going to become a problem down the line. If you're just burying an urn with your ashes, I mean, that's a lot more room.
Should we outlaw the metal coffin and go back to pine boxes?
Well, a pine box is still around the same size as a metal coffin.
But it will decompose faster than metal.
Ah, yes. I like the idea of like you use your ashes and you plant a tree. Isn't that a thing?
That's what I said I was going to do. I said on the pod, yeah.
Okay,
I think that's a beautiful thing.
I like that idea.
But 38 people were killed as a horse-drawn carriage.
And were they targeting Wall Street?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a very targeted attack. JP Morgan, which I think, isn't that where that Luigi guy was too? Wasn't he outside a bank whenever he murdered the dude from the
UBH?
Health
yeah.
Agency?
Maybe. I'm not sure. Back to the Wall Street crash. So it says the number of suicides and suicide attempts in New York amounted to 100 on that Black Thursday in 1929, yet only 4 of them had a connection with the Wall Street crash. So it says the Wall Street crash was not as suicidal as widely believed. That sounds low. Only 4 people killed themselves?
You gotta know, that's rookie numbers.
On Black Thursday? Because you hear all these stories of like traders just jumping out of windows when they're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. I wonder why it was reported 20. Also, you know what it probably is? That back then, they drastically underreported suicides because of the like social stigma was way higher than it used to be. So like after the end of World War II, World War I, people were like, oh, those veterans didn't kill themselves, but they would be like, oh, they died from alcohol or heart attack or something like that, when there was tons of suicides, just nobody said it was suicide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's probably what happened here.
Yeah. If half the so just not as many suicides as you'd think.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
I mean, I feel like money is never a good reason to kill yourself.
J.P. Morgan almost died, too. He got shot.
By a terrorist?
In 1915, a German saboteur, which is one of my favorite words, saboteur. I love that. Named Frank Holt shot J.P. Morgan Jr. in his Long Island home. Morgan survived, and Holt later committed suicide in jail. Double suicide stories. Back to back. That's a first for the pod.
Love to hear it.
There's also the assassination of a dude named Abraham Beam. During the 1970s financial crisis, New York was on the brink of bankruptcy again, and some city officials and their advisors were rumored to have been targeted by mafia-linked figures involving the crisis.
Involving the stock market crash?
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot more crashes and bankruptcies on Wall Street than I would have thought.
Yeah, there was a big crash in 1987, which... I don't know. I think that was probably the most recent one before the 2008 one.
Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme was big. The 1980, that was mostly insider trading, which, honest to God, that sounds like what Large was talking about.
The Bernie Madoff thing, that wasn't insider trading, though. That was just a Ponzi scheme.
No, a Ponzi scheme, yeah. And the one before that, in the 1980s, there was a big insider trading.
Okay.
There was a dude named Michael Milken. He was known as the Junk Bond King, and he was charged with fraud because he would set up these, like, the penny stocks and just completely pump it up, and then dump everything.
Okay.
And people eventually caught on. I mean, it must be like murder in, like, the 1980s. I don't know, or 1800s. I don't know how you ever got caught for murder in the 1800s.
Because we didn't have forensics?
Yeah, no forensics, and it's not like you had a social security number that they could pull anywhere. How in the world would these marshals know? Like, with everybody that's a white dude essentially look like all their sketches that they would draw.
Yeah.
How did you ever get caught? There must have been so many people that were executed for crimes they didn't commit.
Mm-hmm.
Had to have been.
One of America's first famous serial killers, which is the subject of the book Devil in the White City, when Chicago was having their World's Fair back in the late 1800s, and people from all around the country just wanted to come and see the World's Fair. So they would just tell their family, I'm going to Chicago. There's no way to keep track of them. And then this dude was just befriending single woman that came to the city for the World's Fair, and he would murder them in his basement. And he, like, I think the only reason he got caught is because he eventually bragged about it or something. But for the longest time, they had no idea.
I never heard of that one. I'm a big serial killer guy.
You haven't heard about that? They're turning it into a movie with Scorsese and...
What's his name?
Don't know, but Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio are making a movie about it. It's a great book, too.
Okay.
Devil in the White City. Highly recommend it. But he was the first...
Oh, H.H. Holmes, yeah.
H.H. Holmes.
Yeah, I know H.H. Holmes, yeah. I didn't know that was the setting of... I didn't know it was Chicago. I wonder if they have, like, a tour here.
So his murder castle is what I think they called it. It has been torn down. It no longer exists.
Damn. Do you know Albert Fish? Have you ever heard of that serial killer? Albert Fish, straight up creep. I won't say what he did because that is horrific. But my wife got her master's degree in like criminal profiling, and one of the subjects that they studied in school was a dude named Albert Fish. And when he was caught, like he had murdered a bunch of kids and did like cannibalism and all kinds of stuff, like horrific things. When they found him to arrest him, he had rusty needles shoved in his asshole. Like he would, for the pain, like he got off on the pain. As a cannibal, he would eat one of the kids from the neighborhood and then send a letter, an anonymous letter to the parents and saying that I ate your kid like ham. Dude also, was fucking twisted.
He's wearing the same hat and has the same mustache as H.H. Holmes.
Yeah. And Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, I think that's just what all dudes dressed like.
That's just the look
back in the day.
Yeah. It's a strong look.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at video footage from the 1920s, like all dudes pretty much dress the exact same.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't as much diversity in style as you see today.
I mean, kind of pretty close, like casual wear, like quarter zips, hoodies, polos.
It depends where you are. Like in Charleston, South Carolina, something that I always noticed was that like all dudes there would dress exactly the same.
Khaki shorts, polo.
Pastels, something like that. Yeah. They all have the same look.
Big frat boy behavior.
Yep. A little fun fact about Bernie Madoff, they used to call his offices the North Pole because there was so much cocaine.
Oh, I thought you were going to say cum.
No, what? What does the North Pole have to do with cum? It's got a lot of snow.
Oh, yeah. That makes more sense.
The North Pole, because it's like an erect penis? I don't know. What? You got to get your mind out of the cum dumpster.
I really do. I'm sorry. I'd like to apologize to the listeners.
Yes.
Well, a little heavy.
Yep. He would have topless, but hey, I'm sure there was a lot of cum too, because he would have topless entertainers wearing only G-string underwear, serving as waitresses.
Probably, so both.
Yeah, probably walking around, giving people little bumps of coke.
Crank and hog while you're doing a little blow.
Yeah, because at that point, he must have known. He's like, at some point, this is all going to come crumbling down on me, and I'm going to jail for life. I might as well, like, I need to live it up while I can.
I'm surprised he hasn't gotten a pardon.
Didn't he die in jail yet? Or
is he dead, though?
I don't know. He might still be alive, but, I mean, sad story. One of his sons committed suicide after the whole thing.
3 suicide references.
Yeah.
Crushing it.
What else about Wall Street? I know Large mentioned some guy potentially taking a dump in his pants. I know we talked about that. There was a dude on Wall Street who was very upset about the bonus situation. I guess the people at the top of the company were getting these insane bonuses, but all the normal wagers just had a very fixed income, no hope for a bonus. And he was so pissed off about it that he took a dump in the restroom, stomped in it, and then dragged it all over the place by walking around with it on his shoes.
See, I hate things like that. I understand the protest, but the dude that got a $40 million bonus ain't coming down to clean that up. It's one of the people that doesn't get a bonus and is paid minimum wage.
Yep, exactly. You're right. He's not really accomplishing anything.
Like, go take a shit on his desk, on his keyboard.
That will get the point across.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think that's a good point to hop into getting cultured.
I think so. Welcome back to Getting Cultured, the new and improved Getting Cultured, which we now do from an actual airplane. And our first guest is Maresh.
What's going on, guys?
How you doing?
Excited to christen these seats.
Yeah, I think
I hate the middle seat.
Recline. I do hate the middle seat. Because it's always like, you always got to compete like...
Yeah, I'm not reclining.
Okay. Yeah, it's like a big old alpha move. Like, see if you could get in there.
Oh,
you got to go early if you're going to go.
I always kind of give the middle guy the leeway to get the armrest because he's got the worst seat already. Mm-hmm. I can, like, if you're in the window, you can just kind of move over. Aisle, you can put your feet out. Middle, you got nothing.
Yeah. If people have, like, they understand where you're at in the middle seat, like if you have the aisle and the window person doing the right thing and letting you have the armrest, it's not as bad.
Okay.
Yeah, I sat middle row all the way New York to Qatar. I didn't have any like sleeping aids, but I did have a Benadryl. And surprisingly, the Benadryl knocked me the fuck out.
Oh, yeah.
Daytime.
Yeah, I slept like the entire...
What airline was it, though? Was it Emirates or Etihad?
Qatar Airways.
Qatar. They're pretty nice.
Yeah.
So it's a little better than like a United
Yeah, and I mean, this is probably from a domestic U.S. airline, I'd say.
United, yeah.
Pan Am.
Now, how do you sleep when you're on an airplane? Are you sleeping because sometimes I'll lean my head against the seat in front of me and try to sleep. Sometimes I'll sleep like this, but when I sleep like this, I wake up and it's so painful to straighten my neck back out.
The level of snoring when you're up like that too. I feel like you're fucking everybody else up on the plane.
No, I feel like you're stretching your neck, so you're not going to snore when you do that.
No, listen to that already.
Opens the airways, maybe?
Yeah. I always take window seat and then I press myself up like that.
Mm-hmm. Same.
I used to be an aisle guy because of the legs, but now always window.
But you do get those spots on the window where it doesn't directly line up where it's supposed to be. It's 3/4 of the way back, so your head's either on the plastic or it's the little crease there.
Yeah, that's why you need either a sweatshirt or a pillow to lean your head against.
Yeah, there's no perfect economy seat anymore because you can't get the extra legroom ones and have a good window spot.
Yes.
Those don't exist. You have to either sacrifice leg space for the good place to put your head. So
I am also a window seat guy, but I think as we get older and our bladders weaken, then you start being more of an aisle guy.
But then you have to deal with other people who are getting up too. I think the amount I pee doesn't warrant me being an aisle seat guy.
Yeah.
Because I don't, if I'm resting and I'm on a long flight, I don't want to get up because some dickhead ate 5 gin and tonics.
Yeah. I'm also a freak. I will not pee on a plane. I've gone 8 to 12 hour. What's the longest flight I've done recently? Down to South Africa. Didn't pee.
Wow.
It's probably terrible for you, but...
No, well, it is. So does that mean you didn't get out of your seat at all?
I got up and walked around for the blood clotting thing because I don't want to get those.
Yeah.
But I won't pee if I don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, I had a New York to Shanghai flight. I didn't stand up once. And then I was just told my parents, I was oh yeah, it was great. I slept the entire time. They're wait, you never stood up? You could get a blood clot and die.
Yeah, no, yeah. I when I found that out, I started walking and the socks and stuff.
Now, a big rule of mine is most flights, if it's longer than 3 hours, my shoes come off immediately.
Yeah, they swell up.
Yeah, and I just feel so much more comfortable with shoes off. And a lot of people are ew, that's gross. And once my shoes are off, I keep them off. If I'm walking to the bathroom, I go to the bathroom in my socks.
That's a little gross. That's a little gross.
I was on board until the bathroom.
There's so much pee on the ground in there.
Yeah, but I'm just whatever. I'll wash my socks when I arrive at the final destination.
But that time it's already soaked into your skin like onion.
Yeah, you should just get some disposable socks.
I don't have any open cuts on my feet, so I'm if I get a little piss on my toes, it's fine. I also have some I don't think this is true, but I rip ass on flights, and they're all there's the airplane's so loud that I know no one is going to hear it, and I also think the air circulation is so good, so when I fart on flights, I normally can't smell it, so I'm oh, no one else is smelling this, but I don't know if that's true.
That is an act of terror.
Yeah, they definitely smell it. One of my favorite TikTok sounds right now is the dude that's on the plane, and he's who's ever on the plane farting, please stop. It smells very bad.
That's an Indian guy, right? Yeah. I could kind of hear you doing the accent.
Yeah, I didn't want to do the accent
on the
fully.
when you said farting. Yeah. I was he's doing something there.
Okay, well, yeah, maybe I should stop doing that. But what is your question for us today?
Yeah, so I try and do 2 trips if I can afford it every year out of the country. This year I turned 30, so my mom is gifting me a trip, which is really thoughtful of her. So I'm trying to figure out, there's 2 stopover programs that I'm interested in. Aer Lingus does one where you can stop over in Ireland for 7 days and they'll pay for your accommodation.
For all 7 days?
Up to 7 days if you're traveling from the mainland US.
Holy shit.
And depending on the class you fly on for Turkish Airways, you can have a stopover in Istanbul. So the main part of where we're trying to go is Croatia, do Dubrovnik, Split, Hvar. And then we're trying to figure out where we should stop on the way there to get 2 or 3 days in either Dublin or Istanbul. And I know you've traveled to both. Istanbul very recently. Shout out Barstool.
Yeah.
I wanted to get some takes on which one you would do.
So I would have to go Istanbul, and that is not throwing any shade at Dublin. I think it's a great city. I just think you might get more out of your time in Istanbul. It would feel more exotic. It's one of the most historical cities on the planet, whereas if you go to Dublin, you'll have a great time. But when I went to Dublin, I was like, this is kind of like a knockoff Boston, even though Boston's a knockoff Dublin. But it just, it doesn't feel as unique.
Yeah.
It is a great time. Dublin is also not that cheap. But
I've heard that.
Yeah, I think it's like almost just as expensive as London. But I mean, Ireland's worth going to. It's a great time. The west coast of Ireland, a lot of people say when you go spend like more time there, like that is like a very unique spot with just beautiful scenery.
Yeah. I feel like if I went to Dublin, I'd be doing like alcohol tourism. Like I just want to go drink Guinness.
The Guinness Brewery tour is fun.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then I also want to try, I always see them on TikTok, the spice bag.
Dude, love spice bags.
Are they good?
Yes, I grabbed one like the day before my wedding. I never did an official bachelor party, but then my brother and a few friends arrived for the wedding early. So I was like, let's all do a night in Galway.
Okay.
So we went there. I got an Airbnb that was a boat, just like docked in Galway Harbor. That was great. And I was like, we're getting spice bags. And spice bags is the Irish version of Chinese food, really, where they just like, it's deep fried pieces of chicken and French fries in a bag. They throw a bunch of spices in the bag.
Yeah, like Szechuan spices.
Yeah,
and things.
Szechuan spice, maybe some sauteed veggies. Shake it up. And boom, you got yourself a spice bag.
That sounds amazing.
It's so good.
They dump like curry sauce all over it too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's got to be a great post-hangover spot.
Oh my God.
Yeah. There's this one guy I follow on TikTok and he rates them.
Okay.
He gets one every Friday.
I follow that guy
He's
too.
Like, love a curry on a Friday night.
Oh, yeah. Dude, shout out that dude. He actually follows me, I think.
Oh, really?
On Instagram.
Hell
Yeah. Nasty 2K.
All right, so it's going to be Istanbul.
I would say Istanbul. Yeah. Just you'll like it feels very exotic.
Yeah. I'm excited.
The historical sites are like definitely worth seeing.
Yeah.
And I've actually done the layover program there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was flying from New York to Shanghai, but it had like a 16-hour layover in Istanbul, and they paid for me to go to like all the tourist attractions. They took us out for breakfast and lunch, and then my flight still wasn't for another 6 hours. So I was like, do I have to go back to the airport? And they were like, no, you can wander around. So I just wandered around drinking Turkish raka, and it was like a beautiful fall day.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a fun city to walk around in, and I think the kebabs there are pretty special.
Yeah, I've heard the food is just top notch. So I'm excited to give that a whirl. I think that's what we're going to end up doing. So like 3 nights there and then go to Croatia.
Okay.
Sounds sick.
But booking the flights is so tricky because you have to book it round trip out of Istanbul. So you have to. I think I'm going to go U.S. to Istanbul, then book a separate like one way to Croatia, Dubrovnik, or round trip to Dubrovnik. Then I have to fly back to Istanbul to fly from that airport back in order to like qualify for the stay over.
Oh, okay.
So it's a lot of like
travel
logistics.
hacking or something.
Yeah,
like
travel hacking, but gonna make it work, and I'll report back once I have it booked.
Yeah, and hit me up because I got a couple contacts that live in Istanbul that'd be happy to show you around.
Yeah, I gotta get to a Galatasaray, or Fenerbahce, or Galatasaray is where you went.
The guy that I know is like a diehard Fenerbahce fan.
Cool, I gotta get out there. All right, well, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Perfect.
coming on.
Bing.